We're very excited to invite you in and welcome you to the 7th Annual UT Dallas Economic Development Summit. And let me just say simply this, UT Dallas sees its role as a mutual and neutral convener. Because in this room, you're going to find people from all walks of life. For example, if you're part of a business, raise your hand. If you're part of the economic development team, raise your hand. If you're with a city, raise your hand. If you're an elected official, raise your hand. If you're a student, raise your hand. Okay, and there's probably some I probably lost along the way, but this is about bringing together persons who make a significant difference and then allowing an opportunity to hear some current issues from different people throughout and then go from there. So what I'm going to do is introduce you a little bit, pending that I get all this to work, a little bit about what we're going to do today. I am Calvin Jameson. I'm the Vice President for Facilities and Economic Development, and I've had a great team of professionals who have been responsible for helping to develop this campus over the last couple of decades. The purpose of economic development at UT Dallas, I won't go through all of these, other than to say that our role is simple. We want to make sure that we create the right climate, the right connectivity, the right energy, the right mix to allow growth and development in North Texas and beyond. So part of this process is to do just that, to partner with our colleagues at UT Southwestern to make sure we provide development opportunities on our campus to make sure those things do happen overall. And in terms of doing that, we could not do it without a great advisory committee. So if you're a member of the Economic Development Advisory Committee, please stand. My advisory committee that's here, please stand up. Let's give them a round of applause. This curriculum that you're seeing today is the result of our interface with those individuals and making sure that we are hitting on the right notes in terms of what we do overall, and that's part of the process. So, with that in mind, I thought it would be important, an idea for you guys to understand how UT Dallas was back in the day. Now, why do we use 2007? Well, that's when I arrived on campus. So that's a good time to start because that's the part I know most of all. And then anything before that we call BC. So if you look at this, you can see that people ask the number of buildings, the square footage, our research, endowment, students living on campus. And then you look at where we are now. This is 2025. Number of buildings, the square footage of conditioned space. If you look at this, research, thanks in part because of Joe Boncrazio and his team, our VP for research, and our endowment, over $900 million, when you talk about with Shannon Patrick, Director of Development, VP for Development. And then our students, almost 8,200 students living on and near the campus itself. So that tells you a little bit about where we have come as a campus itself. So, with that in mind, I want to introduce a few people that have joined us today. The mayor of Richardson, Amar Mir. Dan Barris, councilman. Curtis, councilman. And I think I have a couple of elected officials who came in and asked you to stand and introduce yourself.
I'm Buddy Pilgrim. I'm Mayor Pro Tem in Parker,
Texas. Thank you. And if UT Dallas maybe can annex that part, I understand it's pretty fluent. Okay. Other elected officials we have here. Okay, you're going to meet a lot of people on the way, too. You can meet some of our VPs, our deans, but more importantly, the people who are beginning to make things happen. So that's the campus as we see it. So let's talk a little bit about what's happened. This most recent thing that we completed in that development we've done on our campus, we have created on this campus in that block of time over $3 billion in new development, over 17 million square feet of new and renovated space on and near campus. We built a little city. And in my career, I used to be a city manager of Richmond, Virginia. So periodically, I'll say Richardson and Richmond, but for the most part, there. And we built something special here. And we've added over 8,000 trees. Let me correct that. I'm from Virginia, where we have real trees. We've added 8,000 shrubs that are going to become trees. Yeah, so we have that. So this is our newest thing called Comets Landing, our new esports. So all those kids at home with playing games, now it's very lucrative. And we have over 800 stations in this particular one with a new Buffalo Wild Wings as a part of that itself. Addition to that, this is our new Student Success Center / Student Union. When we built new Res Hall, we built Res Hall 1, 2, 3, and 5, and then built Res Hall 4, only at UT Dallas. We said, well, how'd you do that? Well, all of those were 400 beds, Res Hall 1, 2, 3, and 5. And Res Hall 4 was 600 beds. We affectionately call this Big Daddy. Well, this right here is Big Mama. And Big Mama is 360,000 square feet, okay, of combinations of student success and student union. In fact, if there are any SMU graduates in here, it's okay if you can, because we can fit SMU in that building, population-wise. So we have created something special here at UT Dallas in terms of what we're doing overall. So this is this particular building itself, and it's scheduled to open up in the fall, well, substantial completion fall of 26, and then they'll move in spring of 27. This is our new performance hall, 780 seats. It's adjacent to the brand new Crow Museum of Fine Arts that we just opened up on campus. And so this complex here gives us a combination of performance hall and music building that we have on our campus, and add to the dynamics of what we have. And just to the south of there is a new cricket field that we built as well. So this is the only place where you can go, and our chess team was been to the Final Four 19 years, with a 2-time national esports champions, with a 2-time national chess champions, and we just added the arts. Only at UT Dallas can you do all of this. Okay, and then from that, this is the Naveen Jindal addition. Dean Pakul, who's been here for 30 years, he's seen it all. And when we finish this particular building will add a total of 125,000 square feet, 450,000 square feet of School of Management, one of the largest in the country you'll find as a part of that. And we're giving a tour as a part of that. Okay, now, we also just cut the ribbon on our new Civil Line. So you can actually park and go all the way to Terminal B at DFW, changing the whole dynamics of what you can do as a part of that. And you can see our president, many of our colleagues from DART, the system, mayor, et cetera. And as a part of that too, and then this is a picture of the train, and T-Mark hanging out, getting ready to jump on the crane as well. That's our mascot, with our cheerleaders as a part of that. And you can see some familiar faces in this room as a part of that. So, what's the impact of UT Dallas? I'll be quick here because we're going to talk about this later. $2.2 billion in operation spending on student and visitors, UT Dallas. $1.2 billion ongoing, recently completed construction projects that we have. In addition to that, some $1 billion in spin-off from research conducted on our campus, and then some $1.6 billion in activity attributed to our graduates per year in tax revenue, and some $33 billion for the entire state of Texas. A lot of our students stay in North Texas when they graduate. That gives you an example of what we are doing to make things work. So, what does a day operate? How does it operate? And what is our strategy moving forward? This is our schedule. When I step down, we're going to invite the panel to the stage, and we're going to have an opportunity to really have a conversation around preparing the next generation for the impact of AI. Also, after that, we're going to have a session led by Joe Pancrazio as moderator to talk about North Texas talent and innovation. And then the race that we have going on there, asking questions appropriately, and we got a great panel to support that as well. Then Dr. Mogi, who's our new president, joined us from Rutgers and has been here yesterday was his 100th day on campus. He'll be interviewed by Mr. Kelvin Walker, who's with the Citizens Council CEO. So we're going to have that session. And then after that, a very intriguing fireside chat with Ray Pearman, the most quoted economic impact guru in the state of Texas. And between that, here's what needs to happen. As you talk to people, as we have breaks, we're going to have strategically them, you have to go and get to know at least 15 people that you don't already know. And if you don't know them, you have to reintroduce yourself to the ones you haven't seen in a long time. It's a part of that. So we have that. So, what was my first impressions of AI? And see, some of you get this, scenario. I'm from Virginia, where Allen Iverson was from. And this is my first impressions of AI and what he was able to do. Again, about 5'10", 165 pounds, but powerful. And if you think about that, that's what AI is today. Powerful. And which is a good segue to say, what did we learn from this before we transition to our interviews? So, had your conversation. I need a couple things. How are we using AI? Who wants to volunteer? Your homework assignment was to see at your table how we use AI. Okay.
Legal research.
Okay, legal research. Okay, right, because it can pick it up, pull it. Okay.
So I'm just going to sum it up, and I'm going to start with who's at this table because I think that's important. First, we have a lot of Dean Percool students and alums. So Dean Percool, I've heard you hire sharp people. They're all here. Graduate students, people who've gotten their degrees, all of them, and we had a great discussion, are AI is important. They're in the midst of it. So no one's looking on the outside, looking in. As we've talked, they all have some deep thoughts about what's going on. They all are exploring the benefits, using the benefits. We even have a gentleman here, Yidi, who's majoring partially in AI. So I would say as far as the UTD student body, they're on top of it. The final thing I'll say, and this is my own personal comment, because it did come up at the table, will AI replace jobs? Of course it's going to destroy jobs. It's going to change jobs. But you look at the people in this room, no one's going to sit around and say, oh, AI took all the jobs. I guess I'll just sit here and, do nothing. I mean, people, it's a tool. So from what I've seen, people are going to use AI to do some things that we can't even think of. So that's our report, Calvin.
Great. Yeah, one more.
So our table has a good blend of students and educational professionals here. So we had a great discussion about how AI we are using in learning as well as in terms of teaching the students. And we ended up discussion with a great point mentioned here that a lot of us when we are learning through AI, we feed the results from one AI to the other, and we end up learning more and more. So yeah, we had that discussion about AI in education.
That's a great segue. Thank you very much. Give them a round of applause, all of them. That is an absolute great segue to introduce our first panel. And so if I ask our first panel to come forward, and then I'm going to ask Vish, let me go back sure I've got this first panel come forward. And Vish, if you can introduce this session, I appreciate it. So Dean Percool, if you come on up, and David, and Kirk. and I'll turn it over to Vish. And for the record, all of the bios are basically on the web that you've been sent. So he's going to be brief about those, and we'll talk about them overall. So Vish, yours.
Thank you, Calvin. It's my absolute honor to introduce the panel. My name is Vish Madhugiri. I'm a member of the Economic Development Advisory Committee at UT Dallas under Dr. Jameson. And this discussion about the impact of AI is very consequential because it arose out of some of the discussions that we had at the Economic Development Advisory Committee in terms of how do we navigate the impact of a non-human entity that has become so powerful that it is going to have a consequential impact on all of our lives as we speak and going forward. And we have a distinguished panel. We have Dave Cobbs, we have David Evans, we have Kiri Kemp, and the moderation of this discussion is by the erudite Dean Hassan Pirkol. So I will let the panel take over, but it is very clear from where we stand that the impact on the students, and particularly on institutions like UT Dallas, in terms of how they stay on top of the game while navigating the tremendous impact, both the seen as well as the unseen, how they navigate and stay on top of the game, is going to determine how we handle and how we navigate the impact of AI. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, welcome. We appreciate you being here today with us. I look around and there are a lot of familiar faces and in fact there are people who are experts in AI in the room. I see Gopal there. Gopal is, Gopal should be moderating this, but I think they asked me because I'm the person who doesn't know anything AI. So, but anyway, I was telling before this that I am an AI dinosaur, and AI dinosaur means I was first introduced to AI and actually did some neural network research and other things in 1980s. So, and introduced AI in 70s. A-star algorithm. I came across A-star and I was an OR guy. I said, what is this? This looks very much like a branch and bound algorithm. It was actually branch and bound algorithm. Anyway, to make the long story short, forward to this day, and AI has finally arrived after many fits and stops, and I am happy to see that it has arrived, because I think that it has already improved people's lives, and it is going to have profound impact going forward. One risk with AI is that the half-life of innovation is now even shorter, okay? And it is getting shorter by the day. And that is very hard on academic institutions. That's us. Academia moves very slowly, and we run the risk of falling behind. So today, my first question goes to Dave. Dave, you said that the 4-year degrees could become obsolete before the student graduates. Tell us about this, and what can we do to prevent it?
There we go. Yeah, it's we're sitting at the crux of a hockey stick that's going to bring a transformational change unlike anything we've seen in human history. So it's going to affect governance, the way we govern, it's going to affect the way we work, society, everything's going to be affected, and so obviously education is part of that, and so I've been known to say that exactly what you said. I think, that when we created 4-year degrees, it was created under the auspice that we're going to give you 4 years of knowledge that you can take and build your career on, for the next 40 years. And now that knowledge could be gone in 2 years, or 4 years after you graduate. And so we have to really fundamentally rethink education. I've been kind of saying that I actually don't even like that we have a single major anymore. Why wouldn't we have smaller majors and let people have 2 or 3? Like you could be in biology and AI and something else. And I also think that we got to look at AI as as kind of an apex technology. This is a technology that's not going to. You shouldn't see courseware only in engineering. You should see AI courseware across the entire college. And so I'm in favor of what I call an AI plus curriculum. So it's biology plus AI, it's agriculture plus AI. It's and then I also think the courses that we put in the first 2 years of college have to change dramatically. Let's leave history in high school unless you're a history major, but let's things like that and. I hate algebra, but sorry if there's any math teachers here. but but I think it's becoming things like coding. Like anyone can code now. You can use your voice to code. But why aren't we having courses that allow people, if they want, in the first 2 years of college, to take on what I'm calling meta skills. Like there are meta skills that we can learn that help us regardless of what our discipline is or regardless of what education we're getting, and start to reevaluate what we can do with that. What types of meta skills could we create to help people work with AI? I think you've got to realize that this is not a tool anymore. With the dramatic change that's happened is AI is now a partner that we think with. So it's not about using a tool and pushing buttons and levers and telling it to do things anymore. This is now a partner, something we think with. I'll close by saying I think we're going to have students will have agents. I think we're just maybe a couple years away from employers that are asking, tell me about your agentic workforce. Like companies are going to become a workforce of workforces. Like you will have agents that you have with you that do things for you, that help you research, that help you learn, that help you do things, and you'll have your agentic workforce, and they'll ask you, tell me about your workforce. How does it help you? How does it accelerate and amplify who you are? And those are the types of questions we're going to get. But I think we're at the crux of a massive change, so we have to pay attention.
Thank you. So, David, you fund a lot of early ventures and companies on customer service, customer experience, and so on and so forth. I guess I should hold this up. So what do you see out there in terms of ideas, technologies, companies, startups that are in the education field and that can help us, that we can adopt and use to keep up with AI?
Sure. So full disclosure, I am also an adjunct here at UTD. So this is a topic that ends up being near and dear to my heart of like, how do I adapt my own curriculum? What tools do I bring to bear as far as what I teach, right? And I think it really dovetails onto sort of what Dave says, is that at the end of the day, the tools that we should be looking at and evaluating it's really akin to thinking through the calculator, right? How do we adapt our curriculum and what tools do we put in the hands of students to be able to better use those tools in the future? So the way I think about it and I'm actually going through and updating my curriculum for the spring, is you think about it in terms of what tools are available, right? And what are most students going to have access to? They're going to have access to LLMs, and they're going to use and access those. So my curriculum needs to feed into how they're going to do that. So when I'm teaching a course, because I teach in the Jindal School, when I teach a course, I need to be thinking about how they go out and use that, right? How do you apply the calculator? Well, how do you apply the LLM to your curriculum? And the lens that I view it through is, how do you spark that creativity? right? We talk a lot about AGI, but what we haven't talked about is the fact that we have created technology that is actually super intelligent when it comes to factual recall, right? LLMs in and of themselves have an infinite recall mechanism that can answer any question that anyone has at any moment. But the key is, how do you drive that question, right? And that's when I think about curriculum design, it's how do I drive that question in the future? How do I spark that curiosity to get them to go to the LLM with the right question? So it's a lot about, for me, it's a lot about storytelling. It's a lot about objective examples of, oh, I remember that case about Uber having to replace Travis Kalanick as CEO. That's the spark to go and start to work with the LLM and start to work with the tools. I think the other place to sort of get to the core question, the other place where we're seeing opportunities are really in a lot of the jobs not being done, right? And we don't look there, right? We all go to we're gonna replace this group of people, rather than looking at where are we fundamentally understaffed and under-resourced on an ongoing basis, right? I call that jobs not being done. We see that a lot in compliance activities. We see that a lot in human resources. What parts of the university and what part of the educational experience are chronically underfunded that we can close gaps in the process that we couldn't before due to budget constraints or simple human capacity constraints, right? And that's where I become optimistic about the opportunity for AI, is that when we're filling jobs not being done, we're not taking work from people. We're creating a better experience by filling the gaps that are still there.
Thank you. So I have heard that AI has reduced the barriers to entry to being able to start up new companies, made it a lot easier. So this being the premise, I'm going to ask our next panelist, Kyrie, does AI make life more equitable, particularly startup life more equitable?
That's a great question. And I have a couple ways that I want to answer that for everybody today. But first and foremost, how you doing? Good morning. Hey, good to see you. I see a lot of familiar faces. So I want to answer this question with a brief story. And the thing is, it's about me. I grew up in a very low-income community, low-income household, single mother, welfare, you name it, right? And the cards were stacked against me. Statistically, I shouldn't even be up here talking to y'all today, right? And the thing is, I got lucky. And I swear this is funny. How many of y'all watch Fresh Prince? So I have an uncle in California that my mom was like, you need to go hang out with him, and it's better opportunity out there. So I went to community college, and from there I got good grades, transferred to UCLA, completely changed the entire trajectory of my life, right? And from there, that's when I grabbed mentors who supported me and said, hey, you're entering this world of business now. Here's what to expect. Here's what you can do. Here's how to make the most of the opportunities. Here's how to dress. Here's how to tie a tie, right? I see some wonderful ties here in the audience, right? And I had to learn that from scratch. And the thing about that is I wanted to start a business and get into the field where we're doing things for people who are not relying on luck, right? If I didn't have my uncle, I don't know where I'd be today. And so we're in the empowerment business is where we are. And so when you talk about AI and the resource that it allows people to have, it's able to be that personal tutor, that coach, that source of knowledge that's accessible, that's in your pocket, that now you're seeing a great reduction in barriers, right? So now everyone has access to Stanford's library of tech knowledge to create startups, right? And so I think that it's a really powerful thing to do that. And what we build, we put AI in the pockets of learners all around the country. And what we see is that they're actually engaging with it. They're learning how to build a business in a simulated game environment. They have a coach where they're saying, hey, which agent should I hire to do this job? And they're getting real-time help, right? And so all of these things, like we're seeing kids say, I guess what, it was just Saturday because we co-develop everything. So we work with students, we say, how was that? How can we make this better all the time? And when they're doing trial runs or they're playing demos of the game, they're saying, hey, I built this business, but I realized that I made this mistake over here and I actually should have done this, and now I know that and I've learned that. And I was like, I wish I had that when I was 16 years old, you know? So when we talk about access, when we talk about resources, we're in an unprecedented time of opportunity, and we're talking about a true, and it's an overused expression, but we're talking about a true leveling of the playing field so that everyone can actually access opportunity and move forward in a way that wasn't possible before AI and where it is today.
That's wonderful, thank you. So, as you can see, all of us think AI is great, and many opportunities, new opportunities, wonderful world. What about risks? You hear people think about risks. You hear people talk about ethics, and so let's just. This is for everybody in the panel. Let's just take a minute to talk about risks associated with AI and what we do to mitigate it, or what we should do to mitigate it.
So I'll start off, and I think I have a friend of mine that said, you know, if your past is your only source of data, your future is going to look an awful lot like your past. And that's one of the challenges that we face in AI, is that everything that we do on a go-forward basis, right, is based on what we had historically. You'll hear a lot of sort of hue and cry about the fact that, you know, that platforms like Stack Overflow, for those of you that aren't coders, right? Stack Overflow was a platform that coders would come together and they would submit their problems of, hey, I'm having this challenge, and coders from around the world would go, oh, I struggled with that problem 10 years ago and I solved it, and here's how I solved it, or 3 years ago, and here's how I solved it. Well, the problem is I'm not going to Stack Overflow anymore. I'm going to GPT or Gemini or Codex, and we're not creating that new data and that new pathway. If you're trying to work with a new framework or a new problem, well, if it's not part of that existing historical corpus, it doesn't carry forward, right? So that presents a challenge of, you know, there's a concept called the dead internet theory, right? That what's slowly happening is AI slop is going to kill the value of the internet. Because we're not creating anything new, we're just rehashing all of the same old things over and over and over again, kind of like Hollywood does with superhero movies. We don't create anything new. That's challenge number one. Challenge number two is, what is also in that data, right? One of the biggest challenges that I see enterprises have and companies have is we forget there's a lot of junk in the data that we use, right? There's lots of data. Large language models in the current era of AI is great with what's called unstructured data, right? That's the data that's in Word documents, PowerPoint presentations, Excel spreadsheets. This is really the uncurated data that represents over 80% of all data generated by human beings. The other 20%, that's in our ERP systems, our CRM systems. Those are reasonably well curated sources of information, but they all have data bias. They all have problems in it. And unless we can truly understand what that 80% of our data, we're talking about zettabytes worth of data, probably wrong prefix, probably even more than that. We're talking about these massive quantities of data that we really don't know what is there. What does that turn into in terms of biased decisions? What does that turn into in terms of how we govern decision-making, processes, opportunity? How do we carry that forward? So there's really two core problems that come purely from data that we need to get our arms around as we move forward, and not just treat it as if, oh, well, it's consumed all the data, therefore it's got the right answer. Well, there's lots of really nasty things that are in our historical record that we really don't want on a go-forward basis. So we need to think about how we control that data and how we manage it on a go-forward basis.
Risks, let's see. So I'm an AI optimist. I just am by nature, and I think we're looking at a technology that eventually here will cure disease and change the world. We're going to see a world in literally just 10 years from now. We're all going to look back 10 years from now and say, I was there when it started, when this change started happening. So I'm an optimist. That being said, there are things to look out for, right? I do a lot of work with even the military, and one of the questions I got from a general once, which I thought was kind of fascinating, he said, what's the difference between nuclear weapons and AI? And I looked at him and I said, well, sir, nuclear weapons can't create more nuclear weapons. And so there are threats like that, right? We're dealing with something very, very different, something we've never, I don't even like the phrase artificial intelligence. I think it's a misnomer. We're actually building a new intelligence. This is a non-biological intelligence. There will be aliens on Earth, and we will put them here. But we're going to learn how to work with that technology, how to be with that technology, how to think with that technology, and how to co-evolve with that technology. I mean that literally, like we are going to co-evolve with AI from here on out. And so it's going to be interesting how that happens, because we have things that we hold dear to our hearts, like agency, human agency, right? What does it mean to be human? Today, AI doesn't have joy, it's not curious, it doesn't have wonder, AI doesn't love, AI doesn't care. So there's all those things that are uniquely human, right? And so I think we got to be very conscious of the differences here. But I think there are risks like that. Another thing that bothers me is that there's 12 technologists in the world that hold more power than any government. That shouldn't be the case. They shouldn't be making decisions on how the world's going to work. Right, so there are some things we need to work on as a world and a society, and I think we will need an AI accord across the world, because one of the problems you can have when you create an AI race, right, when you race towards things, you throw caution to the wind, right? It's all about getting there first. Are we going to be first? And to do that, you have to move fast without paying attention to things like governance and risk and things like that. So that's something we got to pay real attention to. But I'll just end by saying, I am an optimist. I kind of look at these things. You have to be informed by the risk, but I think the benefit of what we're going to get from AI hugely outweighs the risk. We just have to pay attention.
Great. I think my interests kind of connect to some of the themes that you heard already, but I'll frame it where one is context windows, so that's a little bit more technical. The second would be fear. And the third would be access overall. And so what I mean by that is context windows. So by now, some of you might have seen some jokes, you might have seen some stories online, but your quality output is only as good as what you put in. And so if your context window is like, let's say you have a neighbor and everything that you put in is about this being a bad neighbor and you ask for advice, it's going to respond to you as if your neighbor is bad because all you fed it is the bad stuff. You're not also accounting in the fact that he lent you a ladder one time and that actually it's a redeeming thing that you liked, right? So it's biased to only what you feed it, and that's something that we all have to be mindful of and make sure that we're holistically putting in as much useful context as possible. The second, I would say, is fear. So we have a large contract with a Walmart-backed institution in the middle of the country to help 20 states with their AI literacy. And the thing about that is what we're hearing is some of the students there are saying, like, there's a culture of fear where some folks are genuinely afraid, or they say, hey, my dad said that AI is going to take my job, right? And how do I deal with that? And so it's actually like, getting more students to use it and understand the strengths, right? Understanding like how to have that human in the loop, right? Control and critical thinking to be able to guide AI to be useful, right? And being able to have folks overcome their fears so that, tying into my last point, they don't get left behind. And so when we talk about access, it's making sure that we don't put artificial barriers up. It's making sure that we're not blocking the usage. It's making sure that we're encouraging the right critical thinking and usage to be able to command control of AI, right? Instead of just resigning your life away to have it make all the decisions for you, right? So that you have that agency to get what you want out of it. So I think if we take care of those three aspects, that would help us a lot in terms of mitigating the risk of AI today.
Thank you. Let me follow up on that. So nationwide, comp science enrollments, applications have gone down. It is, some say, because of this perception that there is less need for computer science graduates now than before. And so I don't agree with that, but there may be businesses if not professions, there may be businesses that are more vulnerable to AI, to change. So share with us your thoughts on these businesses and how they might be changing, and how should our students be positioning themselves to thrive in the new business world.
Well, so I think I'm a case study in exactly this opportunity that presents itself to us. I am not a computer science graduate, although I was building predictive models in the late 90s for NASA. I have a Bachelor of General Studies from the University of Connecticut. That has actually served me better than had I stayed in a comp sci program my entire career. Well, why is that? Because it made me a well-rounded individual. My general studies program included courses on accounting, business law, marketing, management. I had this well-rounded degree and well-rounded expertise, and I think Dave alluded to this in that sort of multi-degree model, is that we don't necessarily need to learn how to code anymore. Like, it is useful, I'll be honest, I've been writing code for 30 years. I started writing code when I was 14 years old. The software engineering profession is going to dramatically change, right? However, I still do need to understand, because one of the things that, to me, one of the misconceptions is that regular language, the English language, is the same as code. It is not. Code is deterministic and precise. You will not get multiple outcomes from the same line of code. However, the same line of English text, depending on delivery and intonation, can have separate meanings. There's an imprecision in human language. So the role of a software engineer in the future is still going to help to be that translational layer of how do I go from natural language and all of the implicit understanding of why is that person asking me that question? Why would we need to do this as an organization? That's the change that's going to happen in software engineering. And the way we present, and that's going to happen across other professions, right? That's going to happen in accounting. That's going to happen in law. Every profession is going to change in this way to where a lot of those tactical components of the job start to go away. And as educators, we need to start thinking about how do we prepare students to think in those modalities, right? How do we prepare students to be the coder, right? The coding came naturally. I was coding long before I ever went to college, right? The coding came naturally. The tactical aspect of my job came long before I ever enrolled in a university, but the university equipped me with all of the other domain expertise, all of the other context, right, to be successful. That's our job, and that's what we need to do, is give these students the context to be successful in the business world, because the nature of work is going to change, but it's not going to go away.
Yeah, I'll just pile on. We talked a little bit earlier about just how AI is changing society and education and us, right? Today, I have an AI company, and we hire lots of developers, engineers, right? So I won't hire an engineer that's not coding with AI. So I hope there's not people in here that are saying don't use AI to help you code, because I won't hire you. In my company, we did a little research and found out that one of my guys said that he was coding about 300 lines of code a day. With AI, he's doing 3,500. He's more than 10x. And it's not 10x a bad person, it's 10x a brilliant person. That's huge. And so there's this, when I hear people say, coding's going away, I am not a believer in that statement. I think what's happening is AI will amplify and accelerate who you are. If you're a brilliant coder, you're brilliant times 10. So there's a reason Meta tried to hire a guy for $1 billion, and he said no. Yeah, I don't get that part, but I think we have to kind of think about it that way, that really and I'm going to say this is the next 5 to 7 years, right? It's about amplifying and accelerating who you are. So domain expertise is really important. I don't like it when people say you don't need to code anymore because you can code with AI. That's bullshit. So deep domain expertise is really important. Knowing what's wrong, knowing what's right, knowing how things should happen is really important, because you're going to be 10xing something. So if you think about every job today, and I mean every job, right? It should be like, what's possible today? And that's right here, right? Well, now it should be, this is possible, with AI. And so I think part of school is going to be the big change. Colleges, universities, it used to be about the transfer of knowledge. That's gone. That's gone. Expertise is on tap. Knowledge is on tap, right? It's a new world. Now it's about what do I do with that? And so that's what universities need to start looking at now. How can I help students amplify and accelerate who they are, who they want to be, by giving them the ability to think with AI? That's the statement now. And so it's going to challenge all of us. Again, this is a big change, biggest in human history. So it's worth our time to pay attention.
Yeah, I agree with Dave on this one. I think that really it's a multiplier, right, when you look at it at its base. And the thing about it is you'll get a lot of those 10x examples from the folks who have great coding experience, but I guarantee you, everyone in here right now has a problem that could be solved with a system where you can go from idea to app in, a couple hours, right? So if you guys are like, hey, I want to track what I'm eating better, or hey, I want to track distance better and log my miles, for expenses, right? Like you can come up with something and actually now be enabled to create that system for the first time ever with no coding background. So that skill for you is problem solving and critical thinking that now allows you to build a technical solution for the first time ever as a regular person, right? Or a non-engineer. So that's amazing. So in a way, you're 10xing your problem solving, like in parallel with Dave's engineer that is 10xing their ability as well. So as an AI optimist as well, I believe it is a rising tide situation where like everyone is just getting better, and you're gonna get better quality tech all around the board, and we're gonna be able to do things that we weren't able to do ever before.
Thank you. We are running out of time. Do we have time for one question?
Mike is in the back. Please raise your hand if you got a question.
Hi. I'll stand up. Nice meeting you. I'm a current student at MBA program, and we have this amazing professor who teaches operation, and she lets us use AI for our in-class testing. I want to hear your opinion about it. Number one, do you think that will help students think more, or do you think that will prevent learning?
I'll just go first since I have it. So I'm familiar with the study out of Stanford where they, like one of my friends in the MBA program there, like their professor allowed half the class to use AI and half the class to not use AI on the assignments. Across the board, all the AI-assisted submissions were better than the non-AI submissions. And the sort of consensus, is, at least on the coast, right, has been to utilize AI now and get better at guiding the prompts and critical thinking today, and just to go with the trend rather than to fight against it and do yourself a disservice. So I'd say I think it's great, I think it's cutting edge, and I love that they're encouraging more usage in the classroom.
Yeah, I'll pile on the hybrid piece of this, because, a long time ago, right, when I think it was Big Blue, right, AI won the chess battle, right, whatever it was. But you think about what's happened, right, is that back then there's only 400,000 possible moves, but then there's a game of Go, which has more possible moves than atoms in the universe, and AI taught itself how to play that by playing itself in a game over time. But I think, what you've got here is what happened after that, what people don't, the story that wasn't reported was they had a competition now where people with AI were able to compete. And they were 4 or 5x more powerful than a human or an AI. So by combining people with AI, with technology, we're another 5x, right? And so I'm a big fan of allowing AI in the classroom and even on research papers and things like that. But here's the thing. It's not about telling an AI to write you a paper. That should be pretty easy to see that it's not that good. The AIs aren't that, they kind of make it flowery and they talk in a different language than we do, and it doesn't sound like you, right? So, but it's about how did you write that? Like when I use AI to write, like I'll write a press release or something for me, right? And my prompt will be this long, and the press release is this long. Because I'm saying, I want you to look at this press release. I like this about that one. Look at this. I like this about that one. And I want you to think like this person. You're Steve Jobs, and you're Shayat Day. You're this person. You give it a persona. And there's all these things you can do with AI that can give you a real advantage. But the AI can't do it without the prompt. You have to be the prompting it to do the things, to give it a personality, to give it a persona, to show it examples of what you like. And then when it writes the paper, like I hope that teachers can get really good at this. It's like, show me your work. Like, let's open your ChatGPT, let's open Claude, let's look at it. What did you do? Like, this paragraph doesn't sound like you. Can I see what you did with that? You know, and let them see, did I take that paragraph and say, oh, well, I like what you said here, except that doesn't seem like me. I'm more interested in this and less interested in that, and this should be more prominent. Let's rewrite that paragraph together. You know, like, that's how you should use AI. It's not about write a paper for me. So I think it's just more about getting teachers to really embrace that we're going to be thinking with machines. And how do you do that? That's what we should be working with our professors about.
But just to quickly add to that, since I do teach, I think it's partly on you as the student to get the mileage out of your education, right? And this happens pre-GPT and post-GPT, is that there's some students that are here simply to go through the motions to get the piece of paper, and there's some that genuinely want to learn. I think there's a need from the student perspective that you genuinely want to learn, because there is a challenge that we have with AI. It's just like the GPS, and it's just like there's been cognitive studies that have been done with handwritten notes, right? That you never need to refer to your notes, but the act of taking notes actually increases cognitive recall. We're seeing the same thing happen to the inverse with AI. When you haven't gone through the cognitive process to work through the exercise, to work through the case study, and work through in detail, right? Not the, hey, here's the case, here's the questions that Professor Evans is asking, write me up answers to the questions. Doing it the way Dave is describing, right? Thinking through the problem and letting it generate the text, right? Like code. You're giving it the context, you're giving it the information, you're going through the expertise, it's doing the writing for you. That's a fine utilization for it, right? But you need to take, and as instructors, we need to think about that, right? For me, most of my coursework is driven based on casework, right? So the casework, I get to see how you think about the problem. And it's readily apparent in my class when you're finding out the answer at the same time I am. Right? As you're learning, oh, that's the reason why Travis Kalanick was fired, not because this is the reason why I think he's fired, it's because AI told me why he's fired. So some of it is on the student, some of it is on course construction, on how you integrate it, but we have to find ways to take those mental reps, right? It's the challenge with GPS of, at a certain point, you turn off the GPS because you need to learn how to go from point A to point B. You need to flex those cognitive muscles to understand how the concepts come together.
Thank you. I am afraid we are out of time. Please join me in giving a big hand to our panel members.
And the strength of this session itself, okay, overall. And as I look at things, I'm seeing some of the colleagues who's come in. Dean Adams, raise your hand. Dean of Engineering, Dean Adams. For those who are here, want to know some of my individuals. Some of our colleagues who are here represent business. Kevin Sample, who's an investor. Where did Toby Purdy go? He stepped out also. Other individuals who are here represent different businesses overall. And let me think, who else do I have? And of course, my colleagues, my Associate VP for Facilities, I think there he is over there, Jeremy, my Associate VP for Auxiliary Services back there. All the food services, everything goes well. Thank Pam and Bob. If there's something you don't like, keep it to yourself. All right, but at UT Dallas, we like that, no wrong. So, there's Purdy, who's here to hire some people. He's with MW Logistics overall. He's here checking things out overall. So, if our panel could come on forward, I'm going to ask Rose to come introduce our panelists. And then here's what we're going to do this time around. They're going to get engaged, ask some questions. No need to do a lot of introduction about our bios. It's in your website part of it. And then, as they go through the questions, they're going to stop periodically and get feedback from you the individuals overall. So that in mind, let me turn over to Rose.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, great, thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rose Hasham. It is an honor to serve on the advisory committee for UTD's economic development. I suggested this topic for the panel because something remarkable is happening here in North Texas. It's not just growing, it's accelerating. The future of this region will be determined not just by the companies we attract, but by the people we empower. North Texas, it is at an inflection point. Last year alone, we welcomed over 120,000 new residents, more than any metro in America. We now have one of the most youngest, most diverse, and most ambitious workforces in the country. But growth itself is not a strategy. The real question, the real reason I chose this topic is whether we can convert the momentum into a long-term competitiveness. And here's the truth. Talent doesn't just follow growth. It follows purpose. It follows ecosystems that innovate. It follows companies that invest. And it follows communities that believe in building something bigger than themselves. And that's the race we are in. Not against each other, but against our own potential. A race to develop the next generation of engineers and creators, a race to align business, education, and community, a race to ensure that North Texas isn't just keeping up with the future, but shaping it. Today's panel brings together leaders who understand that challenge intimately. So let's begin an honest, forward-looking conversation on North Texas's talent and innovation race. Thank you.
So good afternoon, I'm Joe Pancrazio. I serve as the Vice President for Research and Innovation here at the University of Texas, Dallas. This is a topic near and dear to my heart. I feel like certainly at the university and for the region, we are in an arms control race for talent on all levels. And certainly recruiting the best and brightest in almost every sector of which we're involved in is critical for the long-term growth. And so, as we start, and what we'll do is have the opportunity to, as we engage in questions, we'll have a chance for you to introduce yourselves. But we'll start with Aaron. I think that it's clear that Texas has been ranked as among the best for business around the country. Are we lucky? Are we good? Or is this part of we have a plan? What are the things that we've been doing to provide this competitive environment for talent?
All right. First of all, let me say thanks to Dr. Mogi, who's out here, but for having us here, and Dr. Jameson as well. What an exciting time to be here in the great state of Texas. We're doing a number of things in a number of the right ways, and so it's incumbent upon us to continue doing that. And we're blessed, we're lucky, we're on top of it. We're doing all the things that put us in that number one position. But a lot of that deals with what I call the secret sauce here in Texas. That's when you bring together the worlds of workforce, economic development, and education. Workforce, economic development, and education. And then you couple that with elected leadership who gets it, and then we're well on our way to success. And that's what we have in this room today. We have workforce, economic development, and Governor Abbott always adds education, a key component to everything that we're doing. Couple that with the elected leadership who I've seen, the mayor that was here, and several other city council members. That's our secret sauce in Texas, and when we're doing that, we're doing it well. And so it's not a mistake that we're number one. It really takes the unified collaboration of everyone in this room to make it well worth it. Our topic today is the talent and innovation race. We're going to talk about some of those things because those employers that are here in the great state of Texas, they need that talent pipeline. And if we don't produce that, then these employers have an opportunity to go elsewhere. And so we want to make sure we're continuing to do our part.
Great, thank you, Aaron. And so the next question I'd like to direct to Stacy first. Brad, I'd love your thoughts on this because you've both been very successful in recruiting talent here in North Texas. How has North Texas helped you recruit the talent? And are there still some areas where it's difficult to bring talent in?
So first, let me say thank you for having me and AT&T here today. And I would just piggyback on what Aaron said. There is no doubt that recruiting to North Texas is easier because we are a vibrant, growing city. People want to, if they aren't here yet, they want to relocate here because of the opportunity that the North Texas market has. Having said that, we would also say, as we take an honest assessment of our talent, that it is moderately, don't overthink that, moderately difficult to recruit tech talent. And so what this means is skills like Azure, automation, what you talked about in the previous panel, AI. And then over the last 2 years, what we've seen is those tech skills are really craving stability. So big kudos to us overall. It is great to have a great, vibrant city that offers lots of opportunity in the job market, as well as some great universities like UT Dallas that has cutting edge technology, as well as new thinking. And at the same time, some of these really tough skills are moderately difficult, and that's defined as it requires, in case you're interested, about 58 days of posting to find a good, solid candidate.
So Brad, your thoughts?
Hello, everyone. My name is Brad. I'm with Cisco. Thank you for the invitation today. I could not agree more with the moderate word. Some of the thoughts I had thinking about this question, I would say, first off, right now, times are good. Like recruiting for us in the DFW area, we have about 3,000 employees in the DFW area for Cisco. Recruiting is not a hard thing to do. And we are not only locally, because of academia like we have here, but we have many candidates that are willing to move. And at times in the economy, that's not always the case. But I would say right now, it's a very positive place to be. The challenge is momentum builds momentum. And what I mean by that is we need to get tech companies to come here, because when the tech companies are here, it creates momentum for the rest of the technology companies. And so it's one thing for us to create it, but if Austin is pulling everything south, then it makes it moderately more difficult to get them to come all the way up to Dallas. And so, not that we don't love our great state of Texas and every city in it, but we surely want to make sure that places like Austin is thriving while we are thriving up here and driving technology innovation and investment here in our space to make sure we're balanced. We'll take our fair share, maybe a little more, up here in North Texas.
So,
but I think it's important.
At the risk of you sharing your own secret sauce about how Cisco has been able to recruit talent, are there things that you've done within Cisco to be able to improve at least the yield of tech talent to your organization?
Yeah, I honestly, I think COVID helped a little bit around this because it relaxed some expectations around in-office, out-of-office, flexibility in where you live, flexibility in work. Cisco is slowly moving back to kind of where we were in the past. We're about 3 days a week now in office, some flexibility in that. You'd be surprised how much that impacts someone's desire to move and someone's desire to move and take a different type of technology company. The flexibility is still very prevalent in their decision making, and that's been a secret sauce for us.
I see.
The advantages of being in North Texas economically compared to other places around the world is tremendous, and we certainly tap into that.
So Stacy, anything you'd like to add in terms of what AT&T has been?
AT&T is maybe taking a little different tact, less flexibility in the in-office. We believe that innovation requires that in-office collaboration for us to really advance. And at the end of the day, AT&T is all about innovation. I hope you all would agree with that. And so because of that, our challenge is a little bit more succinct in getting people not to North Texas. That's an easy sell, but to come in and buy into the, hey, we believe in this collaboration equals innovation to power the future. So I would say that we are, however, broad-reaching in our search. And so a lot of our talent search is online. And it doesn't matter where the people are located, we are willing to move them into North Texas. So that's good for our company, but also good for that kind of cutting edge, thought-provoking talent within the industry. The last thing I would say is that AT&T has taken some novel approaches to really stimulating that demand. And so what I mean by that is we have something for those of you who might be students in the room. I think I saw a student earlier. If you're in a STEM degree, we offer something called the AT&T Innovation Experience. This is free of charge, so any student free of charge who can come in, and it's kind of our feeder pool. It allows students to get up to 20 hours of free education to get ready for, so maybe beyond curriculum, to get ready to go into our feeder development program. We have just under 3,000 students a year who take advantage of that. So that's another hook that we would use because of our in-office collaboration innovation experience, that we say, hey, but don't you want to come to a company where innovation is what we breathe every day?
That's great. So the plan is I'm going to ask Aaron one more question, and then I'm going to ask for any questions that you might have in the audience, and we'll come back to that. So be thinking about what questions that you have. Feel free to even ask AI-related questions. I'm sure there's plenty of opinions here about that. I've got a ton of opinions about it. So, with that, Aaron, who are our biggest competitors? Who's out there that is just scooping up the talent? And gosh, if we had just done a little bit more, could we have won to bring that corporate partner here? Or, where have we fallen short?
Yeah, a lot of competition. I'm sitting here smiling because I have two boys, and Dr. Jameson, you mentioned Stephen's an SMU grad, so I'm going to tell him that SMU joke that you mentioned early on today. But one of them, Stephen's at Southwest Airlines, and they're going back to the office, and that's something they're doing. My youngest, Matthew, he's in Denver with Metropolitan State University. He basically is on that flex plan. He basically will make his decisions based on the flexibility of the corporation from that standpoint. So it's kind of that talent. It's important that corporations get it right, and our employers here in Texas are getting that right. And so I want to thank AT&T and Cisco for employing our citizens here in Texas. It means a lot as the students are graduating that they have employment opportunities. When you look at the competition, it's based on the industry. And so if you're looking at semiconductors, we're competing with California and Georgia and some of those other states. If you're looking at the life sciences, you're going to have Massachusetts and the like. I know I saw Jennifer here with Bio, North Texas, it's out here as well. I mean, it's a number of, the competition is fierce. We say economic development is a competitive sport, and companies or other states are looking at what we have to offer. And so it's important for us, the boots on the ground are at the local level. Janie Havel's here from the governor's office, and Kent is here from the Workforce Solutions office, Dallas. All of that coming together, making sure that there are conversations with employers to make sure that at the end of the day, these employers are getting what they need, because they do have choices. They don't have to be here in our great state of Texas, and we need to make sure that we have that pipeline of talent to make sure that we're educating to the needs of the employers. In the panel that was here before, we're talking about how fast that's happening. And so if we're not communicating with employers about their needs, then we're going to miss the boat in that regard. And they'll end up going to other states, and we don't want that to happen. So competition is real. When you have what's happening here, we had an event out at Circle T Ranch that was called the Texas Takeover, basically looking at the New York Stock Exchange, Texas Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ, basically looking at what's happening in this region as it relates to financial industries. We're competing with New York in that regard. Actually, we're beating New York in that regard. We have more financial jobs in this region than they do in the Manhattan area. And so that financial industry, when you have a Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, making those kind of moves, you have to have the talent base here in order for them to be here. New York had it at one point. Their business climate is not as good as ours, and I mean, we're well ahead of that, but we need to make sure that we have the talent pipeline for those employers that are located in our state, because at the end of the day, if it's not here, it doesn't work. And I'll summarize by saying, again, it goes back to those employers working with our local workforce solution offices, to our employers in our workforce solution offices, working with those employers in the education institutions. And so what UT Dallas is doing today, bringing that together, that's leading in that regard. Education is so important to that overall equation. And if we don't get that right, others will get it right, and we'll find ourselves behind rather than leading.
So, sometimes these meetings tend to sound like church services. And so what I want to convey to you is that the university is at an inflection point. We're very much open and responsive to new ideas about how we can be better at our jobs. This is a great time if you're a faculty member, you're a student, you're an advisory board member, or a stakeholder who cares about the ecosystem in general, but this idea of pipeline building. We are in a situation right now, in a position where we're reflecting seriously. How do we create those experiential learning opportunities? How do we create those we talk about pipelines all the time. How do we do it and do it better? So your viewpoints are very important. I'm going to take a moment now and ask if there are any questions from the audience. Okay. Great. We have a question in the back. State your name.
Hey. So my name is Abdullah. I'm a current business analytics student here at UT Dallas. So you did mention about, it's moderately tough to hire technical talent here in Dallas at the very beginning of it. So what do you think is one of the skills that, or if there is a bunch of skills that we as a candidate lacking when we apply for technical roles somewhere? Is it like the technical skills, or it's about the soft skills that we are lagging behind?
From our perspective, it is the technical skills, but I'd challenge you to think it's not, let me just step back for a minute and say, how many of you in this room, on one time on your resume, had that you were proficient in Excel or Word? Okay? Okay. So that wasn't that long ago, and it seems crazy now to say that. And so I'm going to now bridge to AI. So we expect you to be proficient in AI. There's no need to put it on your resume. But where we're having challenges, and to be clear, AI is new. The truth of the matter is there's not that many experts, right? So where we're challenged is those true technical skills. So that, whether that's in AI, forgive me, I got to look at the exact, because I think you're going to ask me exactly what is it. And that is, let me tell you, 1 minute. There's 2 languages that we want you to know. Windsurf or Cursor are the 2 AI languages. And then beyond that, it's, of course, all of the languages that you're probably familiar with. Python, Java, Azure, those like true technical skills. Does that answer your question?
Is there anything to add, Brad?
So not to repeat what she said, so I'm just going to give you a couple points. Critical thinking, influencing skills. We have this thing at Cisco, just don't be an asshole in business. And it's true. I don't care how much AI you apply to it. It matters. All the intangibles are the reason that you get the role, I will tell you. And in this day and age, technical skills, 80% of them look and feel the same. But it's all the other things about you as a person that will make the difference. And so the more technology-oriented we get as a society, the more human the more human you need to be to stand out. So I would stay very balanced in my technical skills. I call it human skills, the power to influence and to move another person, and the practicality of the business that we do. Like, can you apply all of that technical skills you've built in academia in a way that provides an outcome to another customer or to a business, and understand the reality of how that happens? It's just common sense conversation. And I know I'm kind of oversimplifying it, but I can't overemphasize it enough, how important it is to be grounded and unique in yourself, and to show up in a unique way. The next programming language of the future is going to be the human language, right? And that's the reality of how we're going to build the next tech in the future. And so it's so important that you're grounded that way.
I would just add, be interesting, read a book, okay? Read something that you can be the basis of communicating to another human being interests and excitement about. Read a book.
I want to add to that is the importance of this conversation today. When a student asks a question like that, and we have employers answering that question here at the University of Texas, Dallas, UTD, that's the reality, that's the realness of it all. And so if our employers are talking to the educators are communicating that to the students, that's the tie-in. That's how you get results. The answer to those two questions, there may be students in this audience even today that may not be applying that or doing that, but those conversations are critical, important, and necessary. And again, I want to applaud UT for doing that. You have Dr. Perryman coming here a little bit later on. He's known Dr. Perryman for quite some time. All the things that we're talking about, turning it into action is our key. And so, again, thanks Cisco and AT&T for being here, but we want the universities to tie that into those students so that they get that application, because if you have two ships passing in the night, that's not what we want. If you're teaching or learning something that's not applicable to these employers, then it does no good in terms of the education that comes from it.
Great, thank you, Aaron. We have time for another question? Question in the back. Oh, hi.
Hi. Is this on? Yes. Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Kathy Markham. I have a question for both Stacy and Brad, and kind of playing off what Aaron just said. You talked about there's the talent shortage, still looking for tech talent, and we talk about the conversations between companies and education. What are both of your organizations doing with the employees you have? How are you utilizing them to fill those gaps that you have, and where can the university be help to you for that?
All right, thanks for the question. So I would say AT&T has, as you would expect, has a deep curriculum within our company. And so we have something called Ask AT&T, which is our own homegrown version of AI, because we want to keep it within our firewalls. That's very critical for AI. And we encourage people to use it on everything. So honestly, if you're doing, it's end of year, everybody's doing their performance reviews, I'd be shocked if every employee doesn't just use Ask AT&T AI to write their accomplishments, right? So that's a simple example, as well as we have quite a big curriculum for our employees. At this point, it's kind of, there's an introductory and then intermediate. So we're bringing our employees along with us on the journey.
So it's a great question. There's a hard reality to it. I think there's a perception in the world, and then there's the truth about what's happening in corporate America. The perception is that AI is going to replace all of our jobs. The truth is that AI won't replace your jobs. Another person that knows how to use AI will. And so if you're not progressing in your career by using every capability that's presented to you in society and technology, the person next to you, if they're going to replace your job. And so what we're doing in Cisco is we're taking a responsibility to train and teach the difference in how we used to work and how we're going to operate. Because if we don't, Cisco will be irrelevant. Every company in here, if you don't have a strategy to embrace AI in your business, you're going to be irrelevant in 10 years. There's no question about it. It's going to transform. Specifically, your question about how can the university help? At Cisco, we have continuing education, and we have funds to do that. If the programs here aren't practical enough to apply to a skilled person on how they use technology to improve in their job or into the next job they're searching for, they're not going to come and take the class here. And so it really needs to be practical in nature and not what does AI stand for and what are all the theoretical and academic capabilities of that technology. It's how do I apply technology and AI to a project management role to benefit me and the company I work for in this new digital business and digital economy we live in. And so it has to be outcome-based, and I think persona-based, based on the roles. So I would suggest pick 5 personas that match 60% of the employee composition in this area, and I would build a purpose-built 6-month program to match that persona, to leverage AI to produce some outcome that improves the caliber and productivity of that function.
and then I would go market that to every company here in DFW. I think that's how I would do it.
Brett, I think that's a perfect response. I would just simply add, resist the urge to do a cursory review. In other words, at this point, people should know generally how to make a prompt. And instead, focus on that critical agent, because that's what we're seeing right now as a disconnect. Again, early days, so it's all good. But it's often easy to say, oh, I'm using AI to automate something. Well, guys, we had a bot to do that. There's lots of ways to do that. But instead, focus on the critical thinking, and I think the prior panel touched on this a bit. Focus on what is the critical thinking aspect. So one approach might be, I have a clean slate of piece of paper. How might I redesign said process or said problem? Focus there rather than that automation. And then anything you can do to improve the capability of the students in large language model and agentic, how agentic coding works, that's awesome.
Can I just say one more thing?
You can.
As I pass the mic back and forth.
Uno momento.
I'm moderating as well, so it's great conversation. I was going to just add to the importance of what's been discussed here. At the high school level, they have externships, where these teachers at the high school level will go to the employers. They'll go to the employers so that they recognize the importance of what they're teaching benefits the employers. I don't know if they do that at the university level. I don't know if professors or anyone are in a position to go out to the employer, where there's a professor that goes out to Cisco to get these kind of conversations, that goes out to AT&T to get these kind of conversations, that knowledge where they're coming back and recognizing the importance of what they're teaching the students benefits and the importance of it. But the externships is something there, and I can't overemphasize how important it is for employers to be connecting with education so that we have a workforce that really matters, and these companies are not landing in our state saying that they can't find the talent. We need to make sure that that's not a reason that we're losing deals, projects.
You sure? Okay. So, with that, I think we've made our transition towards AI, and it's one that I think Dave Copps referred to it as we're co-evolving with it. And those of you who don't think that we co-evolve with technology, let me take your cell phone and put it on the other side of the room and watch your heart rate go up, okay? You will immediately, you are not the same organism that you were 30 years. And we love it. Now, to your point, it is, we have a great relationship with our phones, okay? A little too good sometimes for people. I think also, those of you who have used ChatGPT, I think that's part of the emergence, that the speed at which you're able to use these tools in new ways is startling. I think that we've been talking about here what we do for an Institute of AI, and it's clear to me from an educational standpoint that we cannot fall into the trap of creating our PowerPoint slides and slinging the same slides from class to class and year to year. This is one that has to have the charge of understanding how quickly these tools are evolving and where are the business opportunities so that we can prepare the students. This is going to have to be something different than what we might do, and I'll speak as an electrical engineer. Volts and amps haven't changed in over 150 years, okay? So I can sit there and talk about resistors and capacitors, and I can illustrate concepts. I can't do that in AI because of how rapidly things are changing. So we're going to have a different way of thinking about education so we can have these kinds of important or impactful ways of reaching or preparing our students for the opportunities that are ahead of them. I also say, just as an aside, I've been following the progression of ChatGPT, and I've used a rather morbid, sorry, I'm using the fact that I have a microphone in my hand, so you don't give professors microphones, they don't stop talking. Just to understand how it's evolving, or at least changing with time. And I've had it over the last several years, and periodically, I ask it to write my obituary. And it's been absolutely fascinating. It started by writing that I was a beloved dean of the School of Engineering at UT Austin, and I passed away in 2012. Okay? That's how it started. And now, when I've done the same exercise, it nailed it. I mean, it really nailed it. And that gave me a sense, And not only that, it had some elements. Apparently, I'm going to be missed for my charming personality and engagement with my students. I had no idea. So I think it's, so with that, I think about as we're evaluating talent, okay, and as we're bringing talent in, I think you've touched on the idea of having skills in AI. Are we really recruiting not just individuals, but really the capacity to create teams? Teams where we have AI assistants, and our ability to do our job isn't so much, us getting graded on an exam individually, but rather our ability to harness talent or at least capacity. Are we going to be evaluated as employees based on our ability to manage our AI assistants? So and then how do we prepare people to do that? How do we evaluate them afterwards?
It's such a good question, and you're very charming.
Thank you.
You're very charming. At Cisco, we have a belief from a technology perspective that the human capacity today is based on the 8 billion people we have on Earth. And we believe with AI, the capacity over the next couple of years is going to grow to 80 billion. And there's going to be an enormous number of digital workers that are working for all of us, that are living in these big data centers, that are using all of our power and space and cooling. And that capacity is going to change the trajectory of what we can do as the human species here on Earth. And it's an amazing concept, but it changes our education system. It changes how we define our value and our skills. Just like you said, I think you're going to be a team of 30 as an individual. And your ability to manage that team and produce the outcome and results, I think the companies you work for or the companies you build yourself will be based upon the output, collective output of that. And that's a very different concept and skill. We're all going to be managers of people and digital workers. You're going to have arguments with your digital workers. Some of them will be more charming than others. Yeah. Some of them might be more dangerous than others from a safety perspective. It's going to be a different world. And from a technology perspective, how we train is very different than the reality of how we did it 30 years ago when I was doing circuits in the lab, which made me very nervous when you said that. It's different now. And so I love the fact that we're doing this because we embrace change and we think through how we develop the next generation.
So good. Another amazing answer by my friend Brad. What I would add is simply that as we think about the future, those skills that are important in managing people today aren't going to change because that interpersonal collaboration will remain important, but they'll begin to manage AI. So AI agentic tools. What we see, the industry, not just at AT&T, what the industry knowledge at the moment is that employees are taking the savings from AI. Maybe they've found a way to do an agentic something, and that's given them back an hour. They're taking those savings personally. And so Stacy built the Better Mousetrap. I find myself having an hour more of free time. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to chit-chat a little bit more. I'm going to go to the coffee, my favorite coffee place. I might even go out for lunch, which for me is a novel concept. What we need to do is shift, the industry again, we'll shift from that to the corporation getting more benefit, and then into the employee managing these agentic capabilities. With that comes a new and emerging skill, which is this. How do we, enterprise-wide, make sure that we're getting the right answer from all of the different agentic codes? Brad and I are working at the same company. He has some great idea on agentic thing that's working for him. I'm 3 departments over, I'm doing the same thing. So how do we then monitor to make sure that we're actually, from an enterprise-wide, receiving all of the benefit and not, I don't want to create something, I just want to steal Brad's, right? So that will become more and more prominent as we go into the future.
So can you imagine a time when we don't have HR departments, human resources departments, but we have human and AI resource departments? In other words, when you start in an organization, some of the training from the very beginning is, here's how Cisco or AT&T develops, here's your instruction manual about what you need to do to build your team, your digital team. Can you imagine that kind of situation? Or maybe it's happening now. So it's institutionalized.
Yeah, I would say it's happening now in pockets. So if you're enrolling in your annual benefits, you probably have an agentic AI ask me anything kind of a thing. You might be able to go to your company website and have a similar AI experience. Having said that, just like and learning, certainly lots of AI opportunities. Having said that, just like so many different items, you still need that human touch. It never eliminates it. Now, it might make it more productive. It's maybe a little, from my view, a little more fun because you spend time on more strategy, less task-oriented. But there is always going to be some combination.
So I'm mindful of the time, so 30 seconds or less. Okay.
No, I think you answered.
Oh, okay, I didn't scare anybody away. Aaron, anything you'd like to add, Aaron?
No, I have two young men living this world, 27, 25 or whatever, and everything that you guys mentioned. Matthew worked in the HR side at one point. He was telling me they need to use AI to screen candidates, doing all these kind of things. These were years ago. And Stephen's not a data analyst, and so heavy use on that side with Southwest Airlines.
Great, wonderful. You know, with that, I just close to say that human and artificial intelligence resources would be abbreviated as HAIR, which I think is really a great idea. And with that, I'll turn it over and say, this round of applause for our panel.
So we've had extraordinary two panels to challenge us in different ways. And one looking at preparing the next generation for AI. And the other one is, how do we make sure we can win the talent innovation race? So if you were not brought to aha moment in all of this, then something's wrong with where you are today. But the energy is still there. What we want to do at this session this afternoon is get an opportunity. We're fortunate to have with us a new president, President Mogi, who joined us from Rutgers, part of the Big Ten on the East Coast, and he is our sixth president of UT Dallas. And more importantly, he is getting used to the Texas weather. He's found that to be the case there. And although I had to explain to him that wait 2 days if it's cold, it'll turn. And he understood that too. But as we think about the campus, and you guys saw the growth that we've had and what we've been doing, the partnerships we've had overall, a large part of that, he comes in with some new energy and new ideas to build on that process. To help us understand it, though, more about our new President CEO is the CEO of the Citizens Council here in Dallas, Mr. Kelvin Walker, who is a graduate of Morehouse College, and also used to teach here at UT Dallas at one point. But he happens to be the CEO over a bunch of CEOs who've made a commitment to do things from an economic development perspective to advance the city of Dallas and thus the region and make it all a better place, with a focus on that. So to help us in this process, I'm going to ask Kevin to come forward, Kelvin, and also Dr. Mogi. And we are going to have a fireside conversation and give it an opportunity to get to know our new President CEO. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Welcome to Dallas, Dr. Mogi. Thank you all for having me, and big thanks to Calvin Jameson. I think you have one. I thought you had one there. Oh. He didn't see the mic. That's all right.
I sat on it.
I know Calvin only gave us 15 minutes. I'm going to ask for a 2-minute extension. But thank you for having me, and I want to reiterate what Calvin said, that my relationship with UT Dallas began in the early 2000s. I was working for a private equity fund here, and I was thinking about getting my PhD in finance. And a friend of mine, Arthur Gregg, who worked here at the time, introduced me to Bob Kieschnick in the finance department. And he quickly gave me a differential equations book to review to say, if you can do this level of math, you should consider the PhD program. So in about 90 seconds, I realized I wasn't going to be in the PhD program. But I played along for a couple of weeks to get to know Bob, and he ultimately said, maybe you should I'm going to just put you in the classroom and see how you like it. And so I got a chance to teach a senior level finance class for 4 summers in a row. And during that time, I was having enough fun here that my wife said, hey, maybe I need to go back and get my MBA. And she got an MBA from UT Dallas. So we get a nice love letter from you every month about giving to the school. So we're very committed to UT Dallas as well. So, but thank you for having me. And let me last say a round of applause and thank you for all of the development and the growth on this campus. I think of what it's been like at Calvin. Great job. My first year that I taught here, almost every week I taught in a different classroom because there was no Jindal School building yet. So to see the evolution and the growth, it's a testament to both the growth in Dallas, but also the growth here at UT Dallas and the commitment. Now, to our new Dallas citizen. The thing I kept thinking about, Dr. Mogi, was you're sitting in Piscataway, New Jersey, minding your business, and this opportunity for the University of Texas at Dallas comes along. Help me understand, what did you see and what made you decide to apply and ultimately accept this opportunity?
Thank you, Kelvin. Good afternoon, all. Afternoon? Here we go. What an amazing place this is. So, I think Joe Pancrazio asked me this question some time back. The fact of the matter is that very few people on the East Coast have heard about UT Dallas. It pains me to admit that. But I was in the small minority who had heard of this institution because there was this amazing man who we cherished, deeply loved, and worked closely with. He taught in my classes, I wrote grants with him, and we were looking forward to doing many more important things in life. And one day he comes to me and says, sorry, Prabhas, I gotta pack my bags, I'm moving to Dallas. So UT Dallas poached this professor, plucked him right from us at Rutgers University. We thought we were very happy because we had poached him from Bell Labs. And so that's how I knew about UT Dallas. I had sort of been watching this institution with admiration, with a bit of envy, but had this sense that this institution is on a mission to do something. It was something very concrete and different. So that's what really piqued my imagination, and then the opportunity came knocking on my door. I was the number 2 guy at Rutgers University for 5 years. Rutgers is a big place. You know how big a place is?
How do you know?
Perhaps you guys in Texas can relate to this, but you know how big a place is on the East Coast based on how many buses run at that organization. And the Rutgers bus system was only second to the New York Metro bus system. That's how big it was. Think about students on those buses. So that's how big it was. And so coming to UT Dallas has been empowering, liberating, uplifting. If you have any doubt about how energized I am feeling at the moment, you can ask many of my colleagues who are in this room today, who were at our strategy intensive yesterday. The first time 100 leaders of the university gathered to ideate around what can be. What does good look like? What might success look like 5 to 10 years from now? And how do we backcast? And we did not do that exercise here. We did that at the headquarters of Capital One. And that is a metaphor for me about how I want this university to arrive on this stage. And as it arrives on this stage, I want the world to come to Dallas. So I want to see this university be that vortex that special thing that animates people around, but also lifts up the communities that are around us. And I think that there's a golden opportunity here. Call me an optimist, but I see a golden opportunity.
Oh, I think this room would agree. I think one of the questions I've also wondered is, so you go through this process where we wine and dine you, we romance you to come down here to UT Dallas. And so there's always what you think it'll be like to what it's actually like. So talk to me about your perceptions of what it would be like to be here, and then what you've found since you got here in August.
So I gotta be honest, right? There's a certain perception of Texas out there in the nation. And I got a lot of this, you're moving to where? And now, I am the one who's telling these people, come check it out. It's an amazing place. And I had been familiar with Houston and Austin to some degree. Rice had been, every February, Rice would come knocking on my door saying, Houston is an amazing place to be at. It's an amazing place to be at in Jan and February of every year.
Right.
So I guess what I am reflecting on is that the university never, and I think this is what's really cool about this place, it never exaggerates about itself. It never inflates what it is. It tells its story the way it is. So I'm sorry I'm being honest here today, especially for the people who were involved in that exercise. But the prospectus and the brochures for UT Dallas did not look impressive. They underplayed everything. They were understated. They would give you the numbers, but they would never brag about them. And so I have to be honest with you. There was nothing there that was like promised to me as an inflated game, and then I came here and discovered that that was like just made up. This place has always proved to be more than what it sold itself to be. And that actually is the work for us to do, is we've got to tell its story. But I have to tell you one thing, and I've said this multiple times, what is that story, right? This is an institution, Kelvin, you've been very familiar with it. You've seen it from when we didn't have this building and that building, and the roads were one lane, and all there were cotton fields around and all that. But what we have to think about is the institution is moving. It's not static. It's like a startup company meets academia. But it's an academic institution. It's not a startup company. It's not growing in all directions. I use the engineering word isometrically or isotropically. It needs to now focus on a few directions it has to grow in. And that's my job. My job is to make sure that the university finds its conscience, finds a direction, leans on that direction, gets the help of the communities around, and develops the strategy around that work. That's why we were gathered yesterday, to think about that. And the second part of it is, for me then, to tell that story. I am the storyteller for the institution, along with many people that are here helping me out. I have to make sure that Dallas is proud of UT Dallas. North Texas is proud of UT Dallas. Texas is proud of UT Dallas. And UT Dallas now makes an appearance on the national stage, not because we have our student athletes playing football. We will likely not have football for a while, or ever. But there are other ways in which we can make a dent. And we've got to find that way, because we can show America what that way is, right? So that's the amazing thing about this. I have a shiver up my spine just thinking of this. What merchandise will we put in the airport shops, folks? What are we going to put out there? It pains me to see UT Dallas is not there today, right? Are we going to put things that you're seeing there for other institutions? If your answer is yes, you're thinking in a certain way. If your answer is heck no, you're thinking my way. And what that way is, we have to work on.
When you look at this audience in particular, as we think about economic development and the role of the private sector in relationship with UT Dallas and your goals, what should this audience know about your key goals, kind of short and longer term for UT Dallas?
Right, so let's start with where we came from here, right? This university, and I've said this before, I got 5 minutes?
Yeah, 7. He gave us 2 extra.
Okay. I'll take 3.
Okay.
And then hopefully have something else to add. For most of you know this already, but I have to repeat this because this is an anomaly. This is an experiment that doesn't happen in the petri dish of life. McDermott, Green, Haggerty, and Johnson conceived of a university. Against all odds, that university happened. The undergrads arrived, the dorms arrived, a kind of sort of campus came out. Students like this man came here and got educated. His wife got educated, and this story just multiplies. If those founders from TI, Texas Instruments, could have conceived that we want to have this, whatever you want to call it, MIT of the Southwest or a graduate center or what have you, they had a mission. This was not a university that was a comprehensive university, all things for everyone. This had a focus. And we've got to remind ourselves of that focus. So as you ask me about economic development, Kelvin, my thoughts are we've got to make this university the economic engine for Dallas-Fort Worth, for this region. So I said we want to be a world-class public research university for Dallas. How are we going to do that? We're going to work on research. We're going to work on student success. And I can explain what that means. But the most important aspect of what I want to reclaim is the work with industry, the work for industry, the work that magnetizes industry to come to this region and say, I want to be where the students are. Aaron, I want the university to be a magnet for the companies that the governor and his team want to bring to Texas. I want to have Dallas be at the center of that work, and I want UT Dallas to be the center of that. Let me give you one example, because nothing speaks as well as examples. There was a big hole in the ground next to a train station in New Jersey. How many of you have been to New Jersey? Raise your hands. Okay. You probably were passing through Newark Airport to catch some connecting flight. Maybe you saw a big block R at Newark Airport. Did you see that? People take selfies there. We got to put a big thing for UT Dallas at the airport so people take selfies there. That tells you that you've arrived. We need to put our logos on Rubik's Cubes, because that is cool here. So the other thing that you have to understand is this hole in the ground stayed there for 10 years because no one took leadership on what will go in there. There were many ideas, but there was no anchor tenant to take it on. So eventually, we succeeded. This was one of my early projects in 2018. And what came out from there, you can Google this, is Helix. You know the Helix, the double helix? Just Google that, and you'll find one of the largest capital projects in America around a university. And this project basically happened because Nokia Bell Labs came there next to Rutgers and said, we want to be where the students are. Okay? And that is going to be an example of an innovation park or innovation hub that we want to create at UT Dallas. So I'm thinking about our work in brain and behavioral sciences, our work in nanotechnology, our work in energy, our work in semiconductors, microelectronics, our work in artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, business analytics, financial technologies, supply chain. The list goes on. These are all areas for you to use in order to be levers for new industry to come. So my dream is simple. I want to create a space for students to succeed alongside some of our best faculty, alongside where industry is. And I want to have that be a part of our magic sauce. What do you think about that?
I'll wrap up because Calvin has given us the hook, but one interesting factoid is I know in 2023 and 2022, Goldman Sachs hired more software engineers at UT Dallas than any other school in the country, which already speaks to the foundation of the growth you have here. Lastly, and Calvin, you can come up, but lastly, I have a couple of just quick questions. One, What do you prefer, the Dallas Tollway or the New Jersey Turnpike?
Yeah, I like the dark silver line.
Good answer, good answer.
And we have the mayor of Richardson here. You're going to stand up for the DART, right? Yes?
Yes,
He's
as the
not-
business
he's-
community
I think
will
he's saying
too.
a yes.
Yes. So,
Yeah, well, Texas is just so loving. Texans are so warm and hospitable. I don't know where that hospitality is lost when you get onto the DNT.
okay, we'll wrap it up on that one. Please give our president a round of applause.
I was waiting for him to say Philadelphia pizza or Dallas pizza.
I thought the Italians in New Jersey basically invented pizza. Was a Texas pizza as like brisket pizza?
That's a good transition to make, if you would. The picture you see is the helix that he talked about early on overall. So this is the vision of what we're talking about, what we can do overall. It's only appropriate then that we'll bring to the stage one of the persons who speak to economic impacts more than anyone else, probably, particularly in Texas, in the country, Dr. Ray Pearman, all the way from Waco, Texas, by way of all other areas, is going to join us. And he is going to be affectionately interviewed by our president, and then he can have some other info if you want to share with us, but we want to make sure at the end of the day there's an opportunity should you have some questions overall with this part. So, yours.
Thank you. Ray, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Lovely to be here with you. You and I had a chat a few days ago.
We did.
And I have been quite curious about your journey. I mean, how does someone like you spend your lifetime trying to forecast what Texas will do next?
Oh, okay.
You know, how does that happen?
Okay, well, I'll give you a little background. Before I do that, though, I want to take just a minute of personal privilege. You've heard from my friend Aaron Demerson over here today. I just want to say, when it comes to workforce development, economic development, being an advocate for this state, there is no greater human being on the face of the earth than Aaron Demerson. One of our mutual friends, who unfortunately is no longer with us, Ray Stoker, who used to chair the TxDOT, who was a good friend of probably some of you as well. Ray's highest compliment he could pay someone was he would say he'd do to get stuck in a ditch with. And I've been stuck in a few ditches with this man, and I can tell you there's no better partner. So, Aaron, it's always great to see you. My journey. I grew up in a small town over in rural East Texas. It was so small we had to take driver's education and sex education in the same car. And when I told my wife that, she said, "Ray, that makes perfect sense. You can't drive either." But, no. And again, I did grow up in a small town. I grew up. I was the first person from my family to finish high school. But was fortunate enough to be able to attend Baylor University on scholarships as a math major. Went to grad school at Rice, and back then that was that was actually over 50 years ago now. And I know it's hard to believe, as young and virile as I look and everything, but that was a while back. Yeah. Why are you laughing? The jokes are over. Okay. I'm sorry. I mean, this stuff's serious here. So some guys have a body that won't quit. I have a body that won't start. But anyway, did that, and I built an econometric model of the U.S. monetary sector, which is still used by the Federal Reserve today and many other central banks around the world. But that got me into modeling when it was a fairly new thing. And so I get to Baylor as a young professor. The dean says, "Ray, could you build a model of Texas?" Because he was trying to get some publicity for the school, and state econometric models were just starting to happen then. I said, "Oh, I guess so," thinking that would be a 6-month project, and 50 years later, I'm still doing it. But weird thing that happened, and I told probably this story the other day. When I did the first forecast, and many of you in the room I think are academics. If you are, you can appreciate this. I was young. I was in my 20s. I was not paying attention to the numbers that came out. I was paying attention to, does the model converge? Is the math correct? Are the algorithms working properly? All the things. It wasn't the world I live in today where I can call up the CEO of every oil company and say, what are you doing? It was not that world. I didn't know anybody, anything. So I just wasn't paying much attention to the numbers. We had oil going down a little bit. That was January of 1982, which was the beginning of something called the oil bust that some of you who've been in Texas a while will learn. Everybody else had oil going up dramatically. A couple of months later, a magazine called me the guy that predicted the oil bust, and this whole thing started. But in all seriousness, and I don't want to spend all the time on this question, but it is interesting. Once we got the model built and I started going around giving speeches and stuff, you would go into a town, you would give a speech. It was in the middle of this terrible situation in Texas. I mean, the 80s in Texas were the worst time we ever experienced economically. You'd go around, you would speak, and afterwards, people come up and chat with you, and you want to talk to them, and they'd tell you about how they'd lost their job, or how they'd lost their business, or how they'd had to lay some people off. You hear those stories, and in all honesty, that was the first time it really dawned on me that those numbers I was looking at were human beings' lives. When you would say 100,000 people lost their jobs this month, that meant 100,000 families were going to struggle. It became a personal thing with me, and it led to getting involved with communities, with economic development, doing a lot of other things. I've had a wonderful journey that's taken me all over the world. But it all started with that and a passion to try to do that in the best way we could. And we've had a lot of opportunities over years to work on that. But anyway, that's kind of how it got started and why I'm still doing it after all these years. Okay.
Are you still having fun?
Oh, I am having a ball.
Okay, especially since Texas is having a ball.
Well, we've done pretty well. We've had a pretty good run. We truly have. Some of the numbers are kind of unbelievable. And again, my friend over here has been in the leadership on a lot of these. But every year there's a magazine called Site Selection that gives out the award for this. But I see some heads nodding. The state that brings in the most new businesses, expansions, investments over a certain level. Texas has won that 13 years in a row.
13 years in a row.
And I think an even more remarkable statistic. For the last 4 years, we have doubled the second place state. So we've gotten twice as much as anybody else. I mean, that is really a remarkable statement.
And can we take a guess, folks? You're not allowed to answer this. What might be the number 2 state? Go ahead. Arizona. Tennessee. Why is no one saying California? Which is the number 2?
It varies from year to year. It's usually North Carolina does very well, Georgia does well some years, Tennessee does well some years.
There we go.
It varies from year to year who the number 2 state is. Ohio has consistently done pretty well in these rankings. Some of the ones you would expect. I will tell you one other quick story, and if you can bear with me on this. Back in 2001, Texas was ranking in the 30s. I mean, we were nowhere near anywhere in the top. We were not on the ball field when it came to economic development. And so the state, the legislature in all their wisdom decided to, and it was a kind of a recession going on, the legislature decided in all their wisdom to mandate a big statewide economic development plan. The legislature in all their wisdom also decided not to appropriate any money for it. And so the folks in power at the time, who were Rick Perry was governor, and David Dewhurst was lieutenant governor, and Pete Laney was speaker, so you had folks from both parties. They asked me if I would donate it. And I told them I would do it on one condition. And that condition was they couldn't vet it, they couldn't change anything, they couldn't tell me because their contributors wanted this to say this or that. I said, as long as I can say what I want to say, I'll do it. And the funny part of the story is, I mean, the good part of it is after that, we managed to pass the legislation that set up the enterprise fund, the emerging technology, all the things came out of that study. And so it had a remarkable impact, and that was great. But the funny piece of it was, I was driving home after we had the big press conference with the three of them, and we released the study. I'm driving home, and the phone rings in my car. And back then, your phone was hooked to your car. And I picked it up, and I answered it. And it was the chief of staff, who was a pretty difficult guy to deal with sometimes for the governor. And he said, and a pretty good friend of mine, he said, Ray, you're going to have to change the study. Like, Mike, don't do this. We're not going to have that conversation.
Change the study?
And yeah,
that sounds unethical.
Yeah, I know. He says, Ray, you're going to have to make a change. And I said, Mike, we've had this conversation. I don't care what your contributors are saying. I'm not going to change anything. And he said, well, it's up to you, but there's 2 places you put the Chilean flag instead of the Texas flag. They look very similar. Go Google it. They look very similar. Okay.
So they were really being very.
I did make that
yes,
change. I did
okay.
make that change.
So do you think this euphoria around our economy is going to continue on?
Well, I think we have great opportunities for it too, and I think we have great challenges. I mean, things have slowed down a little bit the last few months. We all know that. We're in a little difficult time all over the country right now. But if you look beyond that, and you look at the opportunities, not only in Texas, but particularly right here in the Metroplex, I mean, look at what's growing. I mean, life sciences is growing right now. It's one of the fastest growing industries out there. We have billions of dollars in investment in life sciences taking place right here. ARPA-H, the big federal research entity, and I will say, I don't like to get in political things, but this was picked during the last administration. A very, very blue administration picked a very, very red state to get a very, very big plum because of all the huge advantages we could bring to the table in this area. So we're a leader in life sciences, artificial intelligence. Half the investment in the country, almost, in that's taking place in Texas right now. A lot of it, and a lot of the supporting infrastructures right around here. Financial services. I mean, there's, you know, everybody's talking about Y'all Street right now. There's the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and the new Texas Exchange all here. But beyond that, when you look at the overall financial services, I mean, there's a reason that's happening. It's not happening because everybody woke up one day and said, let's come to Texas. If you look over the last 20 years, New York, which is the financial center and will be the financial center for a long time, New York's had 16% growth in financial services employment. Texas has had 111%. If you take the whole industry, including banking and everything, we now have more people working in financial services in Texas than they have in New York. I mean, you know, there are just some remarkable things.
By the way, did you know that the School of Management here is the largest school at UT Dallas?
I did know that, and that's awesome, and it's great.
And that's no accident.
No,
right?
No, absolutely. It's a I think this school is going to play an absolutely critical role in the future of this region. But you know, when people ask me to describe this area sometimes, and they do, you know, what I always say is, and you and I talked about this the other day, it's the commercial center of the Sun Belt. It's the marketing center of the Sun Belt. It's the financial center of the Sun Belt. It's the transportation logistics center of the Sun Belt. You know, it houses one of the largest airports in the world. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this area is doing what it does. I tell people all the time, if you go back and look at the history of Dallas and Fort Worth, okay, and go back, you don't have to go back all that far in history if you appreciate it in Texas. Dallas, because of being a railhead for the cotton industry, evolved in a certain way. Fort Worth, being the end of the cattle trails, evolved in a certain way. Different dynamics, different cultures, that sort of thing. It's a pure random coincidence of history that they are 30 miles apart and not 200 miles apart. They could have served the same function and been 200 miles apart. And 50 years ago, people had the wisdom to put an airport in the middle, and it's just been an incredible development.
I was talking to someone the other day, and they gave me a slightly different version of what you just said.
Okay, that must have been wrong. Okay, go ahead.
Now, I mean, I found it pretty interesting. Here's what I heard, and this is, again, going back a little bit ways, that Fort Worth was the place where the railroads arrived.
Yeah.
Dallas was sleeping when the railroads arrived. But much later, when the airways arrived, that's when Dallas swung into action, and apparently the checks were always being encashed in Dallas. Even if the trade was happening in Houston, the oil was being harvested somewhere else, but the checks were always being encashed in Dallas. And when the airways arrived, the mail got exchanged at Dallas. And so this became like the crossroads. Is that fair?
All that's absolutely true. Again, Dallas became a financial center early on because of the cotton industry. But for those of you who know Dallas history, for many, many years you had the old First National Bank and Republic Bank back before the 80s mess and all that were there literally for a century. And some of the people who ran those banks really helped build this area into what it is today. There was a leadership group in Dallas at that time that was incredible, that really helped fuel that dynamic. Again, Fort Worth had a different dynamic. And it was interesting because even culturally, you had the South and the West. I mean, and there's no reason why they were 30 miles. There's nothing in history that mandated those two things be 30 miles apart.
So complete coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it had to do with where a fort was located.
Yes.
And where some people happened to buy some right of way on in a bid thing that could have well gone the other direction. But yet it made it possible to have this area that's just a powerhouse.
So let me ask you a question that was was perhaps not one of the ones we thought about at the time, but I'm thinking this would be a good question for this audience. Maybe the question for people that are here from various companies, what in your crystal ball is likely to be the sector that will be impacted the most through AI?
Oh, very good question. And I think the short answer is just about everything's going to be impacted by AI.
Which sector will be most affected?
I'll do that, and I want to say a little bit more about it as well. But certainly, no, I think the sector that will be impacted the most by AI, more than likely, I think I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you healthcare, and I'm going to give you the basic financial services. I think those are the two where there's the most opportunity for that type of innovation. There's plenty of opportunities in other places, manufacturing as well. But when I look at AI and analyze AI, I get a little bit different perspective than some people, and I want to share it just for a moment here. It is going to revolutionize a lot of things. It is a very, very, very big deal. What you hear as this, therefore we're going to lose all these jobs. Well, temporarily we are. We are going to lose some jobs temporarily. There's no question about that. In the long term, it's going to create more jobs than it destroys. And I feel confident saying that because every major innovation in the history of the world has done that. There has never been an exception. People say, well, AI is a really, really big deal. I got it. I know that. The computer was a really, really big deal. And there was a point in time when everybody said it's going to get rid of all the jobs. And a few years later, it was robotics. And a few years later, it was the internet. And we find ourselves today with more technology than any point in history and more people working than any point in history. It's a process Joseph Schumpeter talked about in the 40s, sociologists developed in the 30s called creative destruction. That's basically the notion of that it destroys some things, it creates some things. Ultimately, the created is bigger. And you can go literally, I mean, I've given you some examples from my lifetime. Let's go back a little further. People say, well, yeah, but AI is a really, really big deal, Ray. And I agree. What about the wheel? You think it was a bigger deal than the wheel 5,500 years ago? I don't think so. As best they can tell, the archaeologists and the anthropologists and folks that study this stuff, there were about 10 million people on Earth then, and virtually 75% of the jobs were destroyed by the wheel initially. I guess people just hauled stuff around their back. I don't know what they did. But whatever they were doing back then, the wheel took it over. But think if we didn't have that technology today, the world would be a very, very different place. I mean, there have been literally, and that's the process. So when you're looking at it from a standpoint of a perspective of a university, it's not only training people to do the jobs that AI is going to require, look at the way they change, but also be able to adapt as the next big thing comes along in 10 years, the next big thing, and there will be one. That there always is. But it's absolutely critical. And again, that's where I think a world-class research university in a town like this is so very, very important. And I really appreciate the leadership that you've articulated and are trying to bring to this right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have people from computer science and other places here in the audience today. And some of them are saying there's a lot of hype around the fear that AI is going to be so disruptive. That said, we also know of many Gen Z students who have been in jobs and have lost their jobs a couple of years after joining companies, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that churn is going to happen anytime a new, shall we call transformative, sort of leapfrogging technology arrives. What I think is different here, and that's why perhaps there's a sense of this really, really big thing happening, is that we're all able to touch and feel AI, right? Many of us, I would like to hope that most of us have come in touch with AI because all of us now have a computer in our pockets in ways that we never did. And so I think it's very familiar to us. We're familiar with it. I would hazard a guess that when the wheel arrived, a very small fraction of those small number of people had access to the wheel. It took a while before the wheel wheeled over the rest of the world. Now that change is dramatic, and it's felt at a time scale that's quite profound. I like to tell this story about my son, who's 25 years of age, who is slugging it out in New York City, in Manhattan now. He quit his job from Amazon after 3 years because he felt like the pace was too slow. He was a math and computer science major. And he is basically working on a new idea around AI and a startup idea. Is he going to hit a brick wall soon? You bet he will. Is he regretful that he's doing it? No. But that's the kind of spunk I think that this generation needs. And I think the job of a university or the mentors or the ecosystem is to confer that confidence in this generation.
Yeah.
These are going to be the people that are going to find the next oil wells for the nation, right? And that fluency and confidence, I think the challenge for us at the university, we have 30,000 students. We have 21,000 undergraduates, right?
Yeah.
And computer science is our largest major, competing closely with business.
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure that these are all going to become either AI super users, or that they're going to develop new theories around AI, or that they can adapt new technologies to AI, and manage to stay a couple of steps ahead, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me throw a couple of things in there, just based on that. And I'm assuming we might have been going to talk about this later anyway. But we recently completed an impact study for the university and working with Calvin. And you mentioned that you have the 30,000 students right now, and what that means. The graduates of this university already are responsible for, if you look across the entire spectrum of the state of Texas and all the things where they work and the impacts they have throughout all that, are responsible for about 250,000 jobs in this state, about 180,000 jobs in this region. That's already. That is, for a school of the age and genesis of this school, that is absolutely amazing. It truly is.
Can we have an applause to that?
Yeah.
And now, of course, you are an economist.
I can't help myself. I'm sorry.
So you probably will have a dollar value to it?
Yeah, we can certainly put a dollar value to that. That's about $33 billion a year in gross product in the state of Texas.
Say that again?
That's about $33 billion in gross product every year in the state of Texas.
And I think that story also needs to be told, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So what's sort of any surprises, anything that you think you might be able to forecast for us that no one else has been able to forecast?
Well, I don't know about surprises. Again, the thing I see is just opportunity. I mean, it's amazing how much construction is going on and has recently gone on here. I mean, just driving, you can see it just driving through the campus. But it's billions of dollars of construction, a huge amount of support. As you mentioned, this university was founded by folks in the technology industry who wanted something to support industry, and I see that in your vision as being something that's very important. I think a lot of people are surprised by the size of the school. I mean, I would think if you took a poll of people in Dallas and said how many students are there at UT Dallas, I don't think the mean would be 30,000. I mean that's getting up in the upper echelons of some of the schools around here, and I'm not sure people have really appreciated because of the rapid way and the different way this area evolved and it kind of grew together as an area instead of growing out. It's now doing a little bit of both. But given the whole way this thing has evolved, I'm not sure that the message is out there yet. Every major world-class area, every major world-class region has a major world-class university, research university. And so the mission of bringing it there, I mean, you've already got the Carnegie classification here as a Tier 1 research university. There's a lot of that going on people may or may not be aware of. But that notion of pushing it to the next level and getting it out there in the field where it can be used and collaborative with industry, I think can just be an enormous catalyst for what's already a lot of great things going on in the region.
And can we just have an applause to that? I think this notion...
You're going to make me want to run for office.
I think it's an ambition, it's an aspiration. But imagine if you were running for office on that as a slogan or a tagline.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, people joke with me sometimes about running for office. And
have you ever tried to?
Oh, gee, no.
Okay.
The difficulty I have is when you're in the information business, at least to the best of my knowledge.
Well, you know what truth looks like.
Well,
doesn't that count for much?
A little bit, but literally, I mean, our group produces. They tell me I don't count them, but somebody tells me that does count them. We produce billions of numbers every year, To the best of my knowledge, we've never produced one that was a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or a conservative. And so at various times, everybody loves us, and at various
There
times,
we go.
everybody hates us. And you've seen that happen, Aaron.
There we go.
You've seen the governor praise me and criticize me the same day. And that's fine. That's just fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. But anyway, if I can tell a quick story, I've always want to tell quick stories. By a weird coincidence, I was testifying in a House hearing one day, and I got a question about energy policy. And this was during their last administration. And I thought part of what they were doing was really good, and part of what they was doing was really bad. And I just launched off on everything that I didn't like about it, and it made some Democrats mad. At the same moment, I didn't realize at my office we'd done a little study of, remember when the governor first started stopping the trucks at the border and the fruit was rotting and all that kind of stuff? We did a little study of the economic impact of that, which made some Republicans mad. And we happened to release that study at the same instant I was answering that question. And so I was making both sides mad at the same time. I didn't realize it, but there was a columnist in the audience from USA Today who was looking at his phone and listening to me, and he realized that the next day he called me an equal opportunity offender. So I will not be running for office.
Wow. So do you think it makes sense for a university like us to go beyond our boundaries and go to where the markets are?
Oh, I think you have to. I think you absolutely have to. I think that's part of the mission is to be integrated into the community and into the needs of the community. Because I mean, again, this is the logistics center of this whole part of the world. This is the transportation center. This is the marketing center. This is the technology, manufacturing, financial, you name it. I mean, every major technology, avionics, aerospace, advanced manufacturing, AI, financial services, everything for this entire fastest growing region in the country, the Sun Belt. This is the anchor of it. I sometimes call it the buckle of the Sun Belt. I mean, it's literally, this is the anchor for all of it. And you are the research institution. The major
Yes, so we are at the right spot, you're saying.
You are absolutely at the right spot.
So we don't need to go anywhere, you're
That's
saying.
right.
Okay.
You don't
I
need to go
just
anywhere else,
want-
but you need to walk outside the doors of this campus and get out into the street,
There
which I
we
know
go.
you've done in the past.
There we go.
And I know you have great plans for the
There
future.
we go. But it's kind of interesting because the action was in Dallas many decades ago, continues to be in Dallas. It's a beautiful town. I am looking forward to discovering more parts of that town. But just amazing. I mean, the farmers market, the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, the arts district.
fabulous museums, yeah.
I mean, just there's so much to be seen, including the history of what what happened to JFK and understanding how the town was traumatized after that, but how they came together around it, and a city that's healing and is rebuilding itself.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
we want this Dallas to be the Dubai of America, right? This is what I say many times.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, and the potential is clearly there. There's no question.
Yeah. So I'm very optimistic about Dallas, and I tease some of our deans here that we've got to have a connection to Dallas. We are UT Dallas. We need to be crying that from the rooftops. And we want to make sure all the other universities that are around us, they also survive, thrive, prosper alongside us, because we're going to need more than one university.
Sure.
But there has to be something magical about us, right? There's something unique about us. I think the employers who hire our students can say that there's something about the UTD graduate. They say that they have resilience, they have grit, they can solve problems. And hopefully they can also benefit from our research. We have world-class research programs here. So I'm very proud of this place. But the one question is, how can we reduce and alleviate the barriers that people have to come to UT Dallas, right? And so if you in the audience have thoughts on how we can be closer to industry, for the industry, I would like to hear that. I don't know if you have any thoughts in terms of what an example of that looks like.
Well, I suspect, I think an excellent example would be, and one of the big assets this place has is, don't neglect the value of the UT system. I mean, it is an enormous and powerful in this state educational institution and beyond that. and a lot of collaborative models there. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on there that are very productive and have been for years. You know, Aaron and I go back to our dear friends who are no longer with us, the great Pike Powers, did so much to build bridge those gaps together, bring the Austin technology community into one with the University of Texas. I think that same model can be used right here with the technology industries of various types that are here to bring UT Dallas into that same type of approach. And so there are role models here to look at, and being a part of a system as dynamic and large and comprehensive as the University of Texas system is also a huge asset in trying to accomplish that.
And we will collaborate with UT Southwestern. That's one of the major
absolutely.
partners we have.
Phenomenal organization.
And I was going to say, while the action has been in Dallas, and we were north of Dallas in Richardson, which is where TI was founded, the action has now moved to be north of us, right? And so we are in the center of the action here in Richardson, right? I mean, Plano, Frisco, McKinney, Allen, Prosper, Princeton, and there's about 15 other places.
Absolutely.
You probably might tell me which is the fastest growing town in North.
The last number I saw was Prosper.
Prosper, there we go. So we are really at the center of that action, and I want the industry to be galvanized by what we do. Come to us, and we've got to find ways to do that. The Dart line is going to bring the world to us through the Silver Line from the airport, 40 minutes. 40 minutes, straight line to the airport.
Excellent.
Right?
Excellent.
But we want the rest of the world to come to UT Dallas, and we will try to build spaces for you all.
Yeah, and I think part of that, part of that is too, and I think you've hinted at this, Prabhas, is that UT Dallas also has to go out to those folks and bring a new message, a new vision, and this is when you have a changing of the guard, it's an ideal opportunity to do that. I think the things you and I, in the brief time we've been able to know each other, the things you've articulated you want to achieve here, I think are exactly on target for what needs to happen.
Do you want to take a question from the audience? Yeah.
Dr. Perriman, thanks, by the way, for your continual leadership in producing projections that really mostly come true.
We won't go into the details on that, but go ahead.
But I have a question for you. Since 1980, I moved here in 1980, there was euphemistically 1.2 million living in DFW, 90 miles wide, whatever, 75 miles north and south. Today, it's, by most guesses, 8.3 million.
That's right.
That's a 7x growth over 45 years. For the math majors here, it's a compound growth rate of 4.392, ... That's, if not the only area that's grown at this rate. I think we're all amazed by that. My question is, how much further can it go, considering our water constraints, energy constraints, borders, and so on?
No, that's a very, very good question. If you couldn't hear the question, basically, with our resource constraints, water, power, et cetera, how much further can we go? And it's a very, very legitimate question. And I think one also that I think the university will need to be a partner in answering with technology, with research, with development, those kinds of things. It's going to be difficult. I don't want to sugarcoat it. We had a fairly mild summer in Texas this year by Texas standards. Last year we didn't, and I think it was August 13th of last year, we used 83 gigawatts of power in ERCOT. That's the most we've ever used. The projection for 2030 is 150. If you really believe everybody that's filed an application to build an AI facility or a data center in Texas, it's 240. We're not there. Water is a continuing problem. I think there's a lot of great research being done in water. There's a lot of things we can do with water. I do a lot of work with the Coca-Cola Foundation, which, by the way, is the largest water user in the world is Coca-Cola. Probably doesn't surprise you if you think about it. But for the last several years, they've put back more than they've used, as has Pepsi. I mean, there's been a real commitment to this going forward. But the way I look at water, I mean, there's all kinds of new technologies that are phenomenal that are happening right now in water, in energy, and climate, all kinds of things. But where I think you're going to see a lot of benefit there is in agricultural types of research. Does anybody want to hazard a guess what percentage of the gross domestic product is agriculture? It's 1.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say single digit.
It's 1. Anybody want to guess what percentage of the non-reclaimable water in the country agriculture uses?
Repeat that question, please.
What percentage of the non-reclaimable water that's used in the country agriculture uses?
what percent of the non-reclaimable water is used by ag?
It's used by ag. What did I hear? 30? Close, it's about 70. Okay, so point being not, I mean, agriculture is always going to need a lot of water. I'm not saying that. But if new technologies, new innovations can reduce that number from 70 to 60, we don't have a water problem. Those are the kind of visionary things and ideas that come out of universities and research
Joe,
can make that
that's
happen.
a grand challenge right there.
Exactly. But there's going to be, we're going to have to deal with water, we have to energy, we have to deal with transportation. I don't think there's a constraint that says you can't get bigger than X. There is a constraint that says you can't get bigger than X unless you do Y. And Y is deal with these issues straight up. The voters just approved $1 billion a year into a water fund for the next 20 years, assuming we meet certain thresholds, which we should in funding. That's $20 billion. The estimated cost right now is $152 billion. So there's a lot of work to be done to bring those numbers together. And a lot of that's private sector, it's private incentive, it's going to have to be supported by primary research.
Is there any appetite politically to put a fund like that together?
I don't think there's an appetite for $152 billion, and it shouldn't be. I mean, some of this should be the private sector. I mean, this is
yes.
The incentive is somebody that wants to be on the Forbes 400. Figure out water, you'll be there. There needs to be a market approach. That's why I'm saying there's research opportunities in energy. I'm dealing with a company now that's got its phenomenal technology. It's tied up in a bunch of antitrust mess. I'm trying to help them straighten out, but. We talk about having to deal with climate and yet having demand for energy that's pretty much going to require fossil fuels as we deal with the climate. When you mix the air and fossil fuels inside the engine to get optimal burning, this thing can do it 30,000 times a second. And when they do that, they can literally burn fuel, jet fuel, and with 0 greenhouse gas emissions. Now, it's experimental at this point, it's prototype at this point, but the prospects of that are phenomenal. And I just think it's going to, like everything else in the history of the world, it's going to be our creativity, our ingenuity, and that's always, always, always led by the best ideas from the brightest minds
from universities.
At universities. That's right.
Thank you. I believe the number is 8 million now and growing to 12 million projected in, Aaron, how many years to 12 million?
Yeah. That's the path we're on. Immigration's slowing down a little bit. Some of those numbers may stretch out a few years, but it's headed that direction. There's no question.
A final question from anyone?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this a little bit different direction. Yes, please. One of the things I haven't heard anybody talk about today is quantum. So this applies to both of you. My good friend Senator Parker sponsored the Texas Quantum Initiative, which was signed into law by the governor. Oh, sorry. I'm usually pretty loud, at least that's what my wife says. Signed into law by the governor, the Texas Quantum Initiative. What do you see? And then what is UTD and UT going to do to equip the state of Texas? Because I think everything you talked about, life sciences, finance, telecom, we're attracting everybody. What do you see and what are you going to do to make sure we're equipped? Thanks.
Well, there again, I think it's going to take research. It's going to take a commitment. I think the state has done a pretty good job of saying we think this is important. Texas, we probably haven't done enough. We probably haven't done quite enough as I'd like to see us do from a funding perspective. But we've definitely made it a priority. People are aware of it, and I think it's going to be the great ideas from the great research institutions that make it happen. But yes, we're going to have to be dealing with this. We're going to be in a cycle of perpetual innovation. We have been for quite some time, and it's going to be accelerating. I rarely get to do anything academic anymore because I just don't have time. but I did cut my teeth there, and I do love it. And not long ago, I agreed. A think tank was putting out a publication for World Scientific Publishers over in Europe about the about the new geopolitical order, and they asked me to write the economics chapter. And I was on a different mood that day, so I said, yeah, I'll do it. So it got me back into that world, which I love, but don't get to spend much time in. And I framed the entire thing in terms of thermodynamics and physics. And basically, you can characterize, if you assume we're not going to colonize Mars anytime soon, we basically live in a closed system. And so it's going to descend toward chaos. Okay, so you can characterize everything in it as something that accelerates that or slows it down. If you look at the world that way and apply the quantum principles you're talking about, everything we're talking about up here is things that slow that down and hence make sense and allow us to continue to progress and extend the life of this place that, you know, is at some point going to move on toward chaos, but we can push that out a few more millennia that way.
We just spent some time yesterday, the leaders at the university, thinking about 3 strategic pillars for us. And one of them was on taking big bets, but by using convergence between academics and research. And I sort of want the deans of the various schools to come together, not to have these silos, but build bridges. So I think quantum computing and quantum materials is going to be one of the important initiatives here, because it builds on our strengths in advanced materials, topological materials, nonlinear materials, metamaterials, and all of that, but also then gets into computing. It gets into the theory, which relies a lot on our expertise in mathematics, and then into algorithms and beyond. So at Rutgers, we had a pretty successful quantum materials initiative. It was focused on quantum materials, not on quantum computing as much. But now we're getting into devices and computing and applications and modeling and beyond. So we've got to find ways to sort of bridge this. I'd like to have Joe Pancrazio, who's here, as the Vice President for Research and Innovation, to speak to what he sees as our horizon here. Joe.
So thank you, Provost and Dr. Perryman. So I think one of the things that Dr. Perryman raised is this idea of leveraging the UT system. You know, I think we're at this stage in computing, especially with quantum computing. It's a little bit, I'll take you back 50, 60 years ago, maybe even longer, when we had computers that were based on tubes. And these tubes, the operations of these systems really required a lot of delicate handling. I think we're in that same stage with some of the implementations in quantum computing. That's why we need to be able to leverage all the resources that we have, especially at the scale of UT's system, so that we don't duplicate and attempt to repeat these kinds of fundamental investments and all chase after having, you know, the n number of physicists working with, you know, at 1 degree Kelvin to be able to do this. So I think also figuring out the scale at which we interact with these systems.
So we are, I think to Joe's point, working on a UT system initiative on quantum. And hopefully there we'll be able to stitch together our talents in complementary ways and build that up. One of the people who came to us yesterday from University of Chicago, actually not University of Chicago, sorry, University of Illinois System in Chicago, actually leads the Discovery Partners Institute, DPI, which if you just Google it, is focused on AI and quantum microelectronics park outside Chicago. And so he was one of the people who would come here as a fly on the wall to guide us along. So looking forward to more thoughts, but if you have any thoughts in terms of the areas that we need to invest in, we are open for business. We are open for business. UTD is open for business. We are hungry for new talent and new ideas and new partners, right? Should I have a billboard up there that says we're open for business? And again, if you have any suggestions on what our tagline should be to make us more economically friendly, investment friendly, partnership friendly, I would love to hear this. Our deans who are here would love to hear this. Aaron has a thought.
In Texas, you're not just open for business, everybody's open for business, but we're wide open for business.
We're wide open for business. How's that? Thank you.
Let's give a well-deserved round of applause again to panelists. To Kevin Walker leading this charge, to new president, Professor Mogi, and to Ray Perryman. Again, give a well-deserved round of applause. I also want to acknowledge all of the people that you see in the green here, been helping us out, all the helpers. Give them a round of applause for the great work that they did today overall. And also, I'd like to make sure that you know that after we finish this, and we're going to invite up Jen in a moment to talk a little bit about 2 things. One, an overview and eval of this process. There will be a reception immediately after we get a chance to socialize and dialogue with colleagues. And to my colleague over here, Don Magner, you got plenty of thought to talk about what we need to be doing in Mayor as we think about the whole issue of data centers and the likes and the things that are going to happen as part of that. So with that in mind, please come on board. How's the day been? Good, good, good. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen before we can wrap it up.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jameson. So before you guys leave, let us know what you thought. Tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like. We can't do anything about Dr. Perryman's jokes, so send that feedback to him, not to us. I also, before you guys leave, I want you to know all the resources that we have on our website. We send a bi-monthly newsletter that has a labor market update. You can keep track of how the DFW labor market is doing, what industries are thriving, which ones may need a little bit of help right now. We also send out a monthly connection article that talks about the DFW economy and how UT Dallas is involved in that. Before we wrap it up, I'm going to invite Cody Gangasani up to the stage. He's our economic development analyst. He's going to spend about 2 minutes talking about some free resources that we have specifically for economic developers in the room to help with attracting industry to their communities. So, Cody?
Hi, everyone. Just a second. Just to put into perspective of today's discussion in terms of how big of a DFW economy is, I'll just show you, just a second, sorry. This is what Jenny was talking about, the connection article. So in 2023, DFW GDP was close to $740 billion. And then just, this is how we looked in 2023. And you can see the counties that contributed most to the DFW's GDP. This is one of our connection articles. If you are interested to understand more about the work we do at Economic Engine, you can subscribe to us. And I'll show a few of our products, especially to help with recruitments for EDCs and also for the companies. This one is for students, or even the companies can use it just to understand where we are at in terms of students and the programs that offered by UTD. So if let's say if you are a student or if you are a company and just trying to understand, I want to hire a data scientist or maybe someone in the region, and then you just want to check, okay, data scientists, yeah. And then, or maybe database administrators, okay. And you can see the average salary in the region and the number of jobs in the past few years, and then see the potential measures that generally students come, or take these X or Y jobs. And I'll show one more thing. This would be, just a second. UT Dallas pipeline or workforce pipeline. This can be generally used by the companies that are coming to the region or the EDCs. Let's say you are a company, you are looking to hire maybe accountants or auditors, but you want to know, okay, everyone says that, okay, UTD has strength, and then, but we don't know what exactly the enrollment is at UTD. So you can directly come over to our website, and then if you are someone who is familiar with the SOC codes, you can directly search by SOC code and see, okay, if that, okay, what's the occupation I'm looking at, and then the potential majors, and then the number of enrollments in the past few years. Let's say, just to keep it plain simple, I'll try to use it by occupation. Okay, data scientists. So you can see here that, okay, occupation is a data scientist, and then the majors that are offered at UTD, and then at various levels, master's, undergrad, and then possibly, if there isn't PhD at this point here, but the other schools offer, I think they have just started offering in a what do we say that? Multidisciplinary with different schools. So, but yeah, this is the enrollment that you can see here at UTD. And then just, okay, you are someone, a company who are just trying to understand, okay, what is UTD's enrollment look like? And this is something that, the UTD's enrollment. Or especially if you're someone who's trying to see, okay, number of students are graduating from UTD. So this would be something that can help you, this would help just not the companies, but the EDCs, economic development corporations. You can take this information, and then you can directly reach out to companies and then say that, okay, we already have X or Y number of students at UTD. Yeah, that's something we generally do here. Thank you.
And you can go to the website, that's F&E website, and click on the economic development component, and you can have access to that. And some of your localities are actually utilize this database overall too. So that concludes this portion of the session. Now, how many people got to know all 15 of your people? I want to know who that person is. 15. You got to know 15. Okay. Now you got to know, if you got to know 15, you got to know at least 3 more you haven't before you get out of here too. So happy hours outside. There are some refreshments we do have for you. And please complete your information. Again, thank you for a great afternoon, and we'll see you this time next year.